Started here. There's her voice. I want to welcome you to our August 12th, 2026 Sister City Council workshop. I want to tell everybody welcome back after our break. I don't think anything much happened while we were gone. So we have a brand new sound system in the room for anybody online or in the room. So we no longer have individual microphones. So this space age box above us, the green lights means the microphones are on, and while it should be more directed to this side of the room, it does have the ability to well. So just be mindful of that everybody is potentially able to be heard on the recording, but also online as well. So
in the room.
And in the room, yeah. So we're hoping that these modern features are speakers, so we're hoping that people in the back of the room can hear us better as well. So,
can you hear us, Ray?
I can. I've never had trouble hearing you.
So, and if there's anybody online and you're having any difficulty with sound, you're just welcome to put something in the comments, because this is our first meeting with this system. With that, we will head straight into our first topic tonight, and it will be a presentation about the MIRL program to help possibly fund some affordable housing and workforce housing. And sisters, this will be presented by our friends from Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, and Jordan Wheeler will start us off.
Yeah, so I'm pleased to introduce Robin Badura and Sean Keithley from COIC. As you know, we've been working with COIC on the MIRL program. You've probably heard me over the last several months try to explain to you the MIRL program, and failing to do so in probably a coherent way. We reached out to COIC to see if there was an opportunity to do a partnership. And a couple reasons. One, this is a complicated program with a lot of different steps to implement, right? We're talking about ordinances and intergovernmental agreements, working with OHCS and the county assessor's office. And as you know, the City of Sisters has limited housing staffing capabilities and capacity. We don't have the expertise in-house. And we continue to add a lot of programs on our affordable housing side, right? We have the grant programs, we're exploring the MIRL program, the SDC deferral programs are spinning up, and potentially more coming up too. So, we saw this as an opportunity. Could we work with another local jurisdiction to help us explore this program, if it would be a good fit for the City of Sisters? And then is there opportunity to leverage the expertise and the staff that COIC has set up now in their housing departments to help us implement this program? And so here they are, right, to help kind of share the knowledge that they've gathered on the MIRL program, and what it could mean for the City of Sisters, how it works. I could say over the last couple of years since, well, it's been almost a couple of years since the MIRL program was set up by the legislature, there's been some changes and modifications to the program, which COIC has been tracking as well, that I think makes it a little more advantageous for jurisdictions to actually pursue this now. So I think we'll probably start to see more cities enroll and become sponsoring jurisdictions with some of those changes. So I'm not going to talk any more details. I'm going to hand it over to the experts now to kind of go over the MIRL program. And again, this is a workshop, so feel free to ask questions throughout. I think in the packet we included the PowerPoint and the one-pagers as well. So I'll turn it over to Robin or Sean.
Well, yes, thank you, Jordan. I'll keep my remarks brief as well, but I wanted to express our appreciation to the City of Sisters, Mayor, members of the Council, for having us here today to kick off what we hope is a exciting partnership around this moderate income revolving loan program, which could be one of the first of its kind in the state. So certainly a model for our region and our other partner cities and counties and jurisdictions statewide who could make use of this program. So just briefly, as Jordan mentioned, this program was established in 2024 by the legislature, and it is designed as a way to support the creation of moderate income housing, as its name would imply. The program can be a key part of helping to support the production of this kind of housing in communities, which is often the very type of housing that's the most difficult to produce, often outside some of the more common tax and subsidy programs, and maybe below that which developers find most feasible to produce. So it helps bridge that financing feasibility gap that is often found in this so-called missing middle type of housing. So we're proud again to support what could be a first of its kind program here in Sisters. Certainly grateful for all the work that Robin and I should mention we also have Mickey Durding of our housing team here as well, who have put in quite a bit of effort in the past several months, along with in partnership with Jordan and others here at the City of Sisters, to put this program together to the point where it can be a model and hopefully something that can launch and then be administered under the purview of the City of Sisters. So with that, I will hand it off to Robin to dive right in and to explain how this could work in the City of Sisters.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm Robin Bajera, housing specialist with COIC. Huge housing nerd, and so I'm hoping to take this really complex program tonight and break it down into something that is a little bit more manageable. So the Moderate Income Revolving Loan Fund, fondly called MIRL, is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And let me just make sure my screen sharing is working okay. So what is MIRL? So MIRL was established in 2024 through the legislature, designed to be a revolving loan fund for cities and counties to boost housing production, specifically targeted at that 120% AMI, area median income, that a lot of affordable housing programs don't cover. So most affordable housing programs cap out at 80% area median income, and this really kind of goes up higher as we're recognizing that need, that folks who are in that 80 to 120 bracket are still unable to afford housing on the open market. So through this program, OHCS provides no interest loans to local jurisdictions, cities or counties, to pass on to developers in the form of a grant or a loan. And so this program is eligible for both homeownership opportunities and rental housing. And right now there's about $55 million available in funding statewide, with a $10 million set aside specifically for rural communities. So MIRL is really one tool in the toolbox for housing solutions. It is not the savior for affordable housing. It's just one tool, and so in situations where kind of all of the puzzle pieces align, MIRL can be a really powerful tool. So it enables cities like Sisters to fund critical workforce housing developments. It is a locally designed and administered program, so it provides a lot of local control for cities and counties, and it's really designed to bridge those funding gaps for affordable and workforce housing, where without this program, that housing development would not be feasible. So MIRL requires that there is that gap that needs to be filled. This can't cover 50% of a project. This can't cover 20% of a project. It's really just that last little bit to get it over the finish line. And so eligible costs include infrastructure, pre-development costs, construction, and also land write-downs. And so those costs are eligible for reimbursement up to 12 months after the project is approved by the local jurisdiction and Oregon Housing and Community Services, or OHCS. So like I mentioned, MIRL is really designed to serve anyone under 120% of area median income, but this program specifically is trying to fill that gap between 80% AMI and 120. So part of that local control is that jurisdictions could decide they want to use this program to only serve folks who are under 80% AMI, 100% AMI. That's a choice that communities get to make based on their needs. But we throw AMI around a lot when in the housing world, and so I've got some numbers up here, the 2026 AMI limits for Deschutes County, to kind of give some context for who this is designed to serve. So you'll see here, a 4-person household at 100% AMI for Deschutes County is around $120,000 a year. you can see if you've got a 6-person household that goes all the way up to 120, that household could be making $167,000 a year. But a little bit of back of the napkin math, the average home price in Sisters is $730,000, and so for someone to be able to get a loan for a house of that price with a 10% down payment, they would still need to be making $200,000 to $225,000 a year. So you can see kind of how this program is filling that gap between that 80%, which most affordable housing subsidies cover, and where that the need still extends to. So, like I mentioned, this program is unique in that it allows for a lot of local control. So local jurisdictions have to set up their own program, but that can also be viewed as local jurisdictions get to set up their own program. You get to have a lot of control and say based on what your community needs. All applications submitted are reviewed at the local level first before being passed on to OHCS. So that really allows the community to have a say in what they're looking for. MIRL has some baseline requirements, but cities are able to stack additional requirements on top of that based on their needs. So it's really flexible, which is great, but sometimes more options is more overwhelming. So it's a double-edged sword. So the core responsibilities of a sponsoring jurisdiction, if you've read any of the MIRL website, you'll see this referred to as SJ. Doesn't roll off the tongue, but so there's 3 main responsibilities for a sponsoring jurisdiction. They have to set up the local MIRL program, so that requires passing an originating ordinance, and then setting up all of those program elements like an application, a review process, and compliance. And then once that is all set up, sponsoring jurisdictions get to select those eligible projects for funding. And then also, once that project has received funding, ensuring that it is in compliance with OHCS and also local regulations. So I've got some little logos off to the side. COIC is able to help set up a local MIRL program that then the City of Sisters would administer. MIRL, launched in 2024, has had a couple of edits in the legislature in the last couple sessions, and the 2026 session is exciting because OHCS is now offering some assistance in the administration of a MIRL program because they've heard from smaller cities that this program asks a lot of cities that have less staff than maybe Portland.
Is it financial assistance or just staff assistance?
Staff assistance. So when it comes to 2 and 3 listed on this slide, OHCS is now willing to assist with some of that. However, that would not get in the way of local control. So, for example, OHCS is willing to help with the environmental review of projects, but selecting those projects would still be up to the sponsoring jurisdiction. So some of those more administrative tasks, they're willing to offer their staff support, which I think is really great. So the MIRL process, a sponsoring jurisdiction starts by establishing their local MIRL program. Projects then apply to that program, and the sponsoring jurisdiction reviews them at the local level. Projects that are preliminarily approved are then passed on to OHCS for their review and approval. And that's really just making sure that the project is financially sound. Then OHCS issues a no-interest loan to the sponsoring jurisdiction. The sponsoring jurisdiction then gives a grant or a loan to the developer for that housing development. The developer used those funds to finish the housing project. And then the tax assessor collects a program fee in lieu of taxes and sends that fee to OHCS, or in the case of an alternative funding source, the city collects that alternative funding source and passes that on to OHCS. And then those funds get recycled back into the loan program. So like I mentioned, MIRL kind of has 2 pathways that give sponsoring jurisdictions some options. So there is the property tax exemption option, where the loan to OHCS is paid through program fees in lieu of property taxes, and this loops in the county assessor's office. This is for most eligible projects outside of any conflicting tax exemption areas. And so this kind of creates that self-sustaining revolving fund using those property taxes. They also have introduced an alternative funding source option. This is where things get funky. The developer receives a grant or a loan, and the city has pledged some alternative local revenue source. This can be rental income once that property is finished, if it's a rental property. This can be interest that the sponsoring jurisdiction has charged on the project. This can be a number of things. This works for properties that have other property tax exemption status, like urban renewal areas. So this is great because before this, properties in urban renewal areas were ineligible for MIRL. So this provides flexibility for when those property taxes are not available. And like I mentioned, cities are able to charge interest on that loan from the developer.
And Robin, we could also, if we were wanting to help but not necessarily invest city money, we could also have the developer pay back the loan through us.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, and we have gotten confirmation from OHCS that that is allowable.
Thank you.
If the project is not an urban renewal district and doesn't have other tax exemption tied to it, can the city still decide to do an alternative funding source for that project? Okay. Thinking in the case of projects that may be partly in an urban renewal district and partly outside of an urban renewal district? Okay.
I don't know of any projects like that.
So is the determination of it being a loan versus a grant done application by application, or does it have to be, okay. So the city can mix and match amongst their applications. Okay, thank you.
And if we were, or anybody were going to use it and use the tax money through the assessor's office, can that be just the city's portion of the tax, do you know? Or does it have to be all jurisdictions?
My understanding is that it is all jurisdictions except for fire districts.
I asked that same question. So they have they're taking into account fire district and making sure they still get money, but the other districts, I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I wanted to hear it straight from the Robin.
Yes.
So some key players in this program, we've got the sponsoring jurisdiction, we've got the county assessor's office, Oregon Housing and Community Services, OHCS, and then we've got the developer or the fee payer. And so we have been communicating with the Deschutes County Assessor's Office to make sure that they would be willing and able to participate in this program. And our conversations so far, they are open to it. And so we reached out to them earlier this spring. They were open to it. We recently reached back out and are trying to start discussions up again just to make sure that they haven't changed their minds. So COIC's role. So Jordan approached us this past spring about the MIRL program and if COIC had capacity to provide some technical assistance for this program. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm part of COIC's housing team. We are within the larger umbrella of the Community and Economic Development Department. And we have the knowledge and expertise to help build out this program. So our team is involved in the region providing technical support for a lot of other housing projects and work around homelessness in the region. And like I mentioned earlier, I've been in the affordable housing world for a little bit, definitely like to nerd out about it, and so this program is really exciting from our point of view. We have been meeting with other jurisdictions across Oregon who have started to implement this program. While this program is 2 years old, not a lot of cities and counties have jumped on board, and the legislature has been working to kind of fix some of those issues that jurisdictions have had problems with. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the fix bill that they passed earlier this year has made some really exciting changes that our team really thinks makes this program strong. And so we've met with the Tillamook housing team and folks from Coos Bay, both of who are have already passed originating ordinances and are working on building their programs. I believe Tillamook has actually gotten confirmation for 2 of their housing projects that they've received funding. So, you know, this is a new program, and I'm not going to say that we are the experts on it, because I don't think there's anyone in the state who is able to say that they're an expert on it. But we have worked really hard to make sure that we are connecting with folks that are implementing this, learning from the hurdles that they have faced, learning what's gone really well, and making sure that we're just as informed as possible to implement a strong program. So in terms of timeline, we're here today talking with you all about this program. Our goal is to do a project kickoff sometime in the next month or so, and really identify the guiding principles that you would all like for this program. And like I mentioned, coordinate with the tax assessor's office to make sure they are willing and able to participate. And then our goal is to really have the program be open to applications by early 2027.
I have some timing questions.
Yeah.
Finite amount of money, 50 million sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when you start talking about the entire state. So it appears to me, if this is something we wish to do, that the faster we hop onto this and get going, the more likely we are to be able to fund some of the projects that might be important to us, especially before some of the larger jurisdictions jump in, maybe with some big dollar projects that could deplete that fund relatively rapidly. And I do see that the way this fund is structured, when the dollars get fairly low, it may take a few years for that to build back up to the point where they could fund more MIRL projects. Mm-hmm. Is that an accurate sort of an assumption?
Yes.
So faster's better.
Faster's better.
Robin did mention, and I saw this, that there are $10 million set aside for rural. Mm-hmm. So there's some that we wouldn't be competing with, something like Eugene or Portland.
But still, I mean, you know, it's,
yeah. No, for sure. I have a question about the 5%. So my understanding from reading is that OHCS gives out 5% of, say the loan amount is $100,000, just to make it easy. Would they give us as a sponsoring jurisdiction $5,000 that would then not need to be repaid, or does that go into the repayment amount?
It is calculated in the repayment amount.
Okay, just wanted to be clear on that. Okay.
In addition to the assessor administration fee of 1% on top of that.
Yes. In the repayment amount is also 3% fee for calculation for inflation.
A one-time 3% or a yearly 3%?
So that is put on the fee payer. That makes sense.
Fee payer.
The builder.
The builder.
The builder, or in the cases of home ownership, the homeowner paying their taxes.
In other words, the no interest loan to us means we're not paying interest, or we'll never exceed the amount that we have to repay, right? Mm-hmm. From the whatever 10-year property tax exemption calculation is for the grant. But the payment back to the state would not include the fire district portion, right? And then, the developer or whoever got the loan is responsible for paying the inflation and the 5% admin fee.
Okay. So the example that I have running in my head through this conversation this evening is with not as something that would come across as a grant, but would be a loan that was repaid in full by the developer. I'm just trying to understand that. So it would be a one-time 5% fee and a 3% yearly inflation cost.
So,
and if you don't know right now, it's fine. Those are all the things that, as we move forward, I would want to know what, like, in designing a program. But I mean, if you don't have it right now.
So, and I've got a little diagram that I can pull up that I can.
Excuse me.
So.
Can you repeat your question?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, if, back to our $100,000 example, we'd have my understanding is that, let's pretend we didn't get any payback for a year just to keep it easy. So we'd have a 5% one-time fee or amount that was given to us that we could use for whatever we want, theoretically. But then when we pay back, we're paying back that 5% or $5,000. And each year that amount was outstanding would have a 3% inflation cost. And this is where, go.
So from OHCS, a city will receive the amount requested by the developer plus the 5% admin plus the 1% to the tax assessor.
5% of the loan, the total.
Yes.
And if the loan period is 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
we pay it back each year. You divide it by 10, the payments.
Mm-hmm. So what is collected is then that original grant or loan amount, the 5%, the 1%, and then 3% for inflation. And that's, so for the tax option, that would be however frequently you would pay property taxes. For the alternative funding source, that would be determined in the loan agreement. So that is a little squishy for a few reasons. One, because there hasn't been a project financed with the alternative funding source option yet. So that is something that I don't think that OHCS has really nailed down yet. And because it can vary from project to project based on how you structure that loan agreement.
Do you know how Tillamook, you said they had 2 applications, or was that Coos Bay?
Tillamook, yes.
Tillamook. Do you know how they did? Was it grants or loans or?
So that was before the changes were passed in the legislature. So those are both the tax option, and they are both grants to the developer.
That's the first jurisdiction,
Yes.
and there's only 2 right now in the state that are,
Last we checked with OHCS, there are 4. We have been working closely with Coos Bay and Tillamook.
Who decides the amount? Is that the SJ working with the developer?
So it is the tax assessor determining what the maximum is that a project can apply for based on their assessed value of the property, or future assessed value of the property, and then how much the developer actually needs
Okay.
to fill that financing gap.
And then how about the length of the loan? Is
So
that,
the default is 10 years. Jurisdictions can go up to 15 if they choose, but the default is 10 years, and it can't go below 10 years.
okay. And if the developer defaults on a loan?
So
Yeah.
that would only happen in the alternative funding source pathway. And in the new program guidance that was released last week, they've included language that says as long as the sponsoring jurisdiction has dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's in terms of program compliance, so as long as the sponsoring jurisdiction is doing everything that they said they would do, if a program still goes into default, OHCS can modify or can't think of the right word, but waive the debt. Waive is not the right word, I know that.
Forgive?
Yes, thank you. So that new language is in there, which reduces the liability on sponsoring jurisdictions, which is one of the main complaints that cities and counties have had about this program.
Okay. And can you repeat what you said? You said that would only, you're saying that a developer could only default if it's the alternative tax?
If the developer is the one paying the loan back. So if
Okay.
If, for example, the project does not get built and it never pays taxes on the improvements, I would say that that's a very, very slim possibility, and because of the amount of local control that a jurisdiction has in setting up their program, you know, OHCS has their baseline requirements, but if you're really concerned about that liability, you can tack things on that make it virtually impossible. So basically in your review process, making sure that there's the the slimmest margin possible that would happen. Because this is gap financing, it cannot exceed 10% of the total project amount. And so something really, really bad would have to happen for a project to not be complete because of something like that. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
And again, I'm not a developer. So just, I'm not a developer, I'm not a tax assessor. I can't give legal advice. So just throwing that out there. I wear a lot of hats, but thankfully those three are not any of my hats.
I think the question I had in the back of my mind looking how this is set up, and I think it's an excellent idea, is do we have the bandwidth within the city to administer this program as the SJ once it gets?
I think, so initially we were talking with COIC of both helping us implement the program, right? Set it up, what are our rules that we want to do locally, getting all those agreements in place, and then possibly administering the program. Well, with MIRL now and OHCS hearing all the feedback from smaller local jurisdictions like us, they've modified the program, say, okay, we're willing to help cities administer it, right? Do the tracking and the reporting and even, application type, reviews and stuff, right? So I think that makes it even more enticing for smaller communities to be able to say, oh, okay, well, it's just a matter of forwarding things to OHCS.
I was thinking when we had this discussion much earlier, we did have some discussion about everything, dumping it all on your plate. And that wasn't what I was hearing here today, so I just kind of wanted to have a sense, as a small staffed, well-run, but small staffed city, the last thing that I'm interested in doing is creating situations that we're unable to handle could paint us into a corner. I want this program. I just want to be sure that we can do this program.
I'd like to go back to the default question really fast, and with it only financing 10%. In my experience, if a program that is going to default in that final 10% is usually circumstances that are a lot bigger. And I think that it would be something like a really bad economy really fast that would sink that program, but also would hurt private development almost exactly the same ways. And so I don't see it as a big risk because of that. I mean, obviously there's always risk with the economy, and that affects all development, not just this. So I don't really see that as an issue. I mean, good questions and way to narrow it down, but I think the bigger question is how wieldy can we be with it ourselves? I think is definitely the question.
And if we can,
and how much effect is it going to have?
And if we can offload some of that to the state, it makes me a lot more comfortable in terms of the size of our agency.
And since you work with OCHS a lot, I know we're being recorded, but
Here we go.
what is your level of confidence in them being able to administer the program and follow through? And my second question is usually how much time does it take them to process paperwork, process a loan, all that kind of stuff?
So I will say, full honesty, that the MIRL team at OHCS is the best team I've worked with at OHCS. The Megan Ellerton, who runs the program, is really sharp. She's really responsive. She genuinely wants to help people. And she knows this program inside and out, and she knows its flaws, which I really appreciate. From what I've heard from Tillamook, they have said that OHCS turns things around pretty quickly for this program, and that it's more just, things that take long are not having everything that they need from the developer.
You said that you've already spoken with Deschutes County, the assessor that you were speaking with. Were they also in alignment with that potential schedule that you're putting out there? Did they give any feedback on their schedule to set things up?
Yeah, so we met with them back in March when we initially started conversations with the city. We have not met back up with them. We reached out earlier this week and just haven't heard back. So we definitely want to make sure that the timeline aligns with their needs. I remember when we met with them, they were pretty unconcerned about the administrative burden of this program.
how much of it is a roadblock if they decide they don't want to be involved?
Pretty big.
Through the alternative funding scenarios, though, we don't necessarily, I mean, I guess you need them to calculate the
Yes.
total loan amount, but they don't need to do the special assessment for the program, you know.
So, yeah, we still need the calculation for determining the maximum amount that a project could borrow, but they are not involved in kind of that back end, making sure that payments are going where they need to go. But in order for a local program to be stood up, the county does need to sign an IGA with OHCS.
And has there been discussions with the other districts on a property tax bill that would not be getting their taxes through this? Are the other districts aware that this is possibly looming out there?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Is it up to us?
Yeah, it is, and, you know, so for,
And that would be for 10 years, is that the correct window?
yeah, and the interesting thing is if we do have a project and, you know, that's the potential, right? One of the reasons we're kind of pushing this forward is we have a potential project that would be interested. Like I'm kind of hinted at before, a lot of it's in the urban renewal area, which the taxes are already frozen, right? So there wouldn't be that impact to those taxing districts for that urban renewal portion of that project. If we're going to be a sponsoring jurisdictions, there's a potential for future projects, right? You know, the expansion area, maybe other lands in city limits, but that could, you know, be a 10-year abatement on their taxes. So, you know, it would be good governance to reach out and say, hey, we're looking at this tax exemption program, but there is no requirement of the program to get sign-offs from the other districts.
That's amazing. Like that just feels like a little, I mean, I would want to do that. Just let them know.
Is it easy to calculate that kind of stuff so they know what impacts? I mean, are we able to advise them through the numbers that we're making, that we're creating?
I think once the assessor calculates based on what the assessed valuation of the project is, you know, and then they can do their own, like what's their millage rate over 10 years?
Okay.
What would be the loss in revenue, but.
So it's not like they have to do a lot of work, or we have to do a lot of work, we just have to pass on the info.
I mean, the philosophy too would be, you know, with the gap financing, there's sort of the project happened without the combination of public funding and, you know, this gap financing and, you know, there's maybe not, right? Or some of these, you know, housing developers are nonprofits, right? They're already not paying, you know, as much on the project either, right? Paying the taxes on it, so.
I think it'd be helpful if we calculate this stuff on a project-specific basis at some point and say, hey, this, at least be able to, you know, just help the other tax districts out by telling them this particular project is gonna reduce your whatever by this much.
But our districts got their special carve out because they're usually the ones that are most concerned.
I mean, I don't think it's that hard to create the number, right? So.
In the back of my brain, something flashed through, which is always very dangerous. Let's have time off. Essentially, the tax repayment, does it come from the entire city tax base or just the taxes you would realize from the project when it's completed? You see the difference there? In other words, is that reduction in taxes that we're talking about to pay the loan back, that is against the increased value of the project when it is done?
Yes.
And not against those other entities within the city. So it's not like, it wouldn't decrease the school district or the park district's budget currently is, but it also would not increase it because of the new building. Is that correct?
They may be looking at, oh, that development's going to be a $3 million, you know, it's going to be valued at that's, you know.
Yeah, so, but.
Or it could house,
$12,000 for us.
20 children, and, you know, I mean, you know, school districts get money from other places, but.
Well, yeah, so in the back of my mind was just, that distinction was important to me, especially when I think about SPRD and their low operating level. You know, I don't want to take money away from them, but if it means we can get housing in this town that allows people that can work at SPRD to do programming for youth, that can work at the school district or in our clinics and those sorts of things, because we can meet that AMI level. It's a much easier pill to swallow if you have that jurisdiction, whether it's the city or the school district or the park district that's not getting that new tax increment from that project.
It'd be interesting to do a calculation though, because you're talking about it can't exceed 10% of the total project cost, right? And then it's capped at the 10 years based on that number. So it may not be as large of amount, especially split amongst 20 different districts, or different millage rates. It might not be that big of a financial impact per district.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think those values you talked about, Gary, are much higher than a little bit of tax they're not going to get, but it's always good to evaluate it to make sure.
And I wanted to be sure they knew what we were doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just good governance.
So on the grant side of it and the local control, and can you give us some examples of what that might look like? I mean, can we be really specific about, we'll give you a grant, but you can only use it for SDCs, or, it just said that you can have some sort of local control and creativity over this, and I was just like some examples.
So some examples of local control. So for example, you could say that you're only interested in rental projects. You could say that you're only interested in homeownership projects. You could say that you're only interested in cottage cluster homeownership projects. You could say that you're only interested in projects that go up to 100% AMI. That going up to 120 is too much and you're only looking at serving up to 100. In terms of things that the grant is specifically covering, when someone applies, they have to outline exactly what the project would be, or what the grant would be funding. And so I'm not sure off the top of my head if you could say, you can only apply for SDCs, things like that. I don't know if the control goes that deep, but I do know that from a more community needs standpoint, you can say, I'm sure if you wanted to really hone in, you could even say I know that there are some developers who are have requirements that say you have to have lived in the area for X amount of years. So that there's different things like that, but in terms of you have to be applying for land costs only or construction only. I don't know if that is something that you can enforce.
Okay, so it's really more the onus is on the applicant to kind of highlight this money is really going to go to this portion, but on the top end we can be a little more specific about types of projects. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that can change over time. So you're able to amend or issue a new originating ordinance that as the community's needs change, you can change the requirements of the program at that level.
Something you just said, so the originating ordinance, so a next step would be an ordinance, is that correct, to even move forward? Like we'd have to decide as council, if yes, we want to move forward, we'd say that. So do the specifics of the program then go into the ordinance? Is that what
Some of them, yeah. So you would want to have some conversations around community goals for the local MIRL program, because those are included in the originating ordinance. You don't have to have all elements of the program built out when you pass the originating ordinance, but it is a good idea to start at least having some high-level ideas of what the compliance structure is going to be, things like that, because it helps shape the originating ordinance.
Okay. So I hadn't in my mind gotten that would be earlier than later, or that there would be that earlier than later, so, okay.
OHCS has recommended building out the program and working on the originating ordinance at the same time, rather than saving it for the end or doing it at the very beginning, so that you have some construct of what the program is going to look like, and so that you don't have to go back later and amend that ordinance immediately because of something that has come up.
In terms of handholding from you folks, I'm looking at your timeline chart that you had up earlier. There's 3 sorts of milestones that you have listed. The last one has the establishing or originating ordinance in it. How far down that list do you help us with the hand-holding and see that we're on track and are ready to go?
So in the
In terms of when
plan,
we put an IGA together and everything else, how far down that list is your organization prepared to go with us? I guess that's my question.
so in the scope of work that we've outlined and shared with Jordan, all the way down.
Thank you. That's the right answer. From my perspective, anyway.
And does any of this have any effect on our credit rating or anything financially for the city?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer other than I think it really does help when OHCS now has the flexibility to say, oh, you did everything you needed to do, you set up a good program, and this project just fell through. We're going to forgive that loan, right? I mean, I think that probably looks good for creditors, but it's not, the city's not, I mean, I guess it is a loan to the city, so in some ways it's adding some debt to the city that we have to repay over that 10 or 15-year period, but compared to our total market value of the city and our current, reserve capacity and the ability to repay through other means and stuff like that, I think we're still super strong, just looking at probably the amounts that we're talking about in terms of gap financing for these projects.
Does any future annexation change any of this conversation whatsoever?
Again, council would have control over modifying the program, limiting it, thinking about how you want to tailor the program to, do you want to cap, how many properties have tax exemptions, right? Just in terms of how many properties at once do you want to have 10 years of exempt, property tax payments? That, I don't know if that needs to come now or that can come later as we, kind of grow and expand and be like, okay, maybe not in this master plan development, we're going to do that, but, you'll have options.
I don't want us to block ourselves accidentally somehow,
I'm wondering, from your perspective, if we decide to do this, I guess we have to have a next council meeting decision as opposed to tonight. I mean, this is a workshop, we don't make decisions in workshops. But how fast can we be set up and ready to roll? I mean, if we're going to do this, I'd rather do it now rather than dragging our feet and watching the money siphon out of Salem.
Yeah, the
I
next
think we may have some developers
logistical
that might be interested too.
step is we need to do an IGA. We have a draft, and we might be able to pull that off this month, to get that in front of council on the 26th if all goes well in negotiations and stuff. It's pretty simple, right? This is a pretty small scope of work. We've been at this since the spring, so we actually put it in the budget. If you remember the urban renewal budget, we said, oh, well, since the likely project that we have in the hopper is an urban renewal project, we could probably use a lot of that cost out of the urban renewal agency. And then also remember, we get that 5%, right? So I would see that almost as like, okay, we're going to replenish the cost to contract with COIC through our admin fee that we could collect through a project if the project happens in the next year or so. So I think, realistically, we're looking at hopefully a September startup once we get the authorizations.
Yeah, part of my concern is we have a lot on our plate with the UGB work, and I just don't want this to kind of get pushed to the back as we have a lot of other things on the plate. I also don't want staff to not be able to go home and have to sleep on the floor here at night in order to get everything done. But my position is if we are going to do this, now rather than later is where I am.
I would give a similar head nod.
Well, we're already pretty far down the primrose path, so to speak. We've done our homework.
And good news that as it's explained here, the costs are eligible costs are infrastructure, pre-development, construction, and land, and costs are eligible for reimbursement if incurred within 12 months before local site approval. So we have a bit of a window with these projects to still help with them if they've already gone past a certain point of their construction efforts. Can a developer have concurrent MIRLs, multiple MIRLs?
There's nothing that says they can't.
if they have little MIRLs that are lit.
Yeah, I'd like to see us do what we can to make that happen. Make this happen.
I mean, at this point, what we would be agreeing to, or head nodding to, is that you would move forward with the IGA and then we would vote on that at the next council meeting, potentially?
Yeah, approving the IGA, and we'll have the scope of work in there, and then we'll see the timeline, like, once that's approved, we'll be ready to, well, COIC will be ready to go. Robin will be ready to go.
And I expect that some of the people in this room may already have some IGA wording already set up from some other jurisdictions they might be working with. I don't know who that might be.
We definitely.
Do you want to work with us?
Did we scare you off?
This is what you do, right?
You've all been very kind.
All right, any other questions or?
I would just add my support too, obviously. I mean,
I as well, yeah.
yeah, I hadn't said anything like that, but yeah, obviously,
I'm,
I'd like to see what's next.
I'm comforted that we weren't first on board, we weren't the early adopter, let a few other communities work a couple kinks out. I like that sisters can be very nimble sometimes and creative, but when it's small and there's some big dollar signs attached, it's better to have other communities do that work. So, I'm much more comfortable at this point as well.
I think the thing that is, for me, I think in all my years on this council and also with the other taxing districts I've been with, this is one of the few times when I've actually seen the legislature and the state put something together that would work for communities like ours without creating a whole lot of noise in order for us to get it done. I may have a different opinion when this is all said and done, but at this point, they're either doing a real good job of hiding it, or it's actually something that can work.
Well, thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you for
And
your time. You know it was a long day and you came here, so thank you.
we'll see you again.
Thank you.
See the ball and hit it.
All right, next up on our workshop schedule is a Title 21 text amendment to Deschutes County Code. New development, Scott Woodford will walk us through it. I guess you could sit anywhere. No. You can,
You'd be on
better on camera, I think, but.
We got to look you in the eye, Scott.
All right, Scott, are you nerding out? I want you to nerd out too.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely nerd out. You can keep up.
And then what about the gentleman? I had a little extra coffee for this, just so I could keep up with you, Scott, so. Ready?
All right, here we go. All right, thank you for hosting me here tonight to do this little workshop on a kind of out-of-the-box, a little bit unusual application that we're processing on behalf of Deschutes County that's related to our urban growth boundary amendment. And so, what are we looking at? We're proposing, the City of Sisters is the applicant to Deschutes County by virtue of an agreement that we have with the county, a joint management agreement, requires that the city staff, the city be the entity responsible for processing amendments to the Deschutes County Code when it pertains to things in the Sisters growth area. It's also part of a package of amendments that are being processed concurrently by the county staff that are related to this, but are a different section of the code that that is not subject to the joint management agreement. So they're basically two tracks. So we're doing the Title 21. Their county staff is doing Title 17, 18, and amendments to their comprehensive plan. And so what basically, essentially what this would allow is that it would allow base zones and what they call combining zones, which are also, you've heard the term overlay zone before. It's kind of something that is it affects a base zone but is not a base zone. So basically this amendment would allow some of those base zones and combining zones that are in Title 18 to be brought over or to be used in Title 21, basically. And it came up during the process, during our urban growth boundary amendment process, where the county staff identified that there was a gap in their code. It's not something that the city, it wasn't a fault of the city application. It was something unforeseen by the county staff because it's a provision of their code that is rarely, if ever, invoked. And so basically the problem with the gap is that it would potentially leave properties brought into our urban growth boundary that are still in the county and not yet annexed without some important Article 5 natural resource protections. So the aim of this is to fix that gap and make sure that those protections are in place. So just a reminder of the preferred alternative, the preferred boundary for our UGB amendment is up on the screen in blue. Our initial application request with the city or with the county was to take those properties that are zoned rural residential 10 as well as a zoned floodplain for those areas that are along Waichus Creek and propose to rezone it to UAR 10 and a different floodplain zone in Title 21. Basically those Title 18, different parts of their code, they don't really talk to each other, so to speak. And so, as I mentioned, the solution is a amendment to both the county code and the comprehensive plan. The reason that there's an amendment to the comprehensive plan, to Deschutes County comprehensive plan, is that we need to insert some policy language that basically permits or lays the foundation for the code amendments. It's, the comprehensive plan is kind of the basis for our code, right? We look to make sure that there is authorization or at least some mention that this kind of arrangement of amendments is permissible. So a little bit about the county zone. Similar to our municipal code, there's different chapters, different titles. I mentioned Title 17 is a portion of this amendment. I'll speak to that a little later. But Title 18 is the bulk of the county's zoning ordinance. It has the bulk of the different county zones, the base zones. It has the overlay, or what they call the combining zones, and it also has sections for unincorporated areas. It has one for the Sun River, Lapine, Tumalo, other areas. Interestingly, it does not currently have one for sisters, and that's another thing that we're trying to correct in their code. And then you get down, you see Title 19, 19A, 20, 21 are the different urbanized urban areas that pertain to land in Ben's urban growth boundary that are still in the county, not yet urbanized. Redmond's urban growth boundary in the county, yet not urbanized. And then this Title 21. And you'll see as we dig a little deeper into Title 18, you can see some of the zone districts that are allowed or included in that title. And I highlighted a couple of them for discussion because those are some of the zones in Title 18 that we would like to make permissible in Title 21. That includes rural residential 10, which is the existing zoning of the properties in our urban growth boundary. We had discussed that, one of the questions that have come up from the property owners out there is, if we're rezoning as part of this urban growth boundary amendment, what's that going to do to my uses? Well, we're taking advantage of this opportunity to make rural residential 10 a permissible zone in our urban growth boundary. So in other words, if this is approved, we wouldn't have to rezone the property. They could keep their zone the way it is until they annex, which we think is an advantage. Some of the other overlay zones that are of note are the airport safety combining zone, the landscape management combining zone, which is a overlay that exists in Title 18, and it's basically, it preserves scenic views along highways, it preserves scenic views along creeks and other water bodies, so it's a kind of an important tool that the county uses for preservation. And they have a wildlife area combining zone, and then there's 2 floodplain zones. Title 18 has its own floodplain zone. Title 21 has a floodplain zone as well, but it's not nearly as robust and would not provide the protections that I think everybody would want to see on those properties. And so you look to the right of that on the screen, the little box there. That's just an example of the zones that are available in Title 18, primary zones and combining zones, and some of them that we want to make permissible in Title 21 for the properties that we're going to bring into our urban growth boundary. And this is an example of one of the sections that addresses the unincorporated areas. Basically says that these are the zone districts that would be permissible in those areas. For one reason or another, Sisters does not have a section like this in their code, and we propose to add that to it. So going to skip into Title 21, what exists today, basically you can see the little box to the right. Those are the 4 zones that are basically permissible zones in our urbanizable area. And landscape management is something that we did a little more research on and found that the county actually removed landscape management from that zone back in 2004, but they never removed the language in the chart here. So we're adding it back. I'm not sure exactly why they removed it in 2004, but it's not there today, and we need to add it back. I mentioned that there was some other code amendments going on, and this is just a summary of those. Like I said, we're adding some policy language to Chapter 1 and Chapter 4 of the Deschutes County Code that basically policies establishing the authority to basically use existing Deschutes County zoning as an interim holding designation on lands added to the Sisters UGB pending annexation. Again, the county staff is processing this with their planning commission, and the board of county commissioners will be the final say on those changes. In addition, they are making amendments to Title 17 and 18. Title 17 was a section that involves subdivisions. And given the fact that we have basically the code open right now, we took the liberty to request that we make a change to Title 17 in the Deschutes County Code that would mirror language that the City of Bend added for their UGB amendment several years ago. And it basically would permit our subdivision standards to apply to the county, to the parcels while they're in the county until they're annexed. The concern is that there is a cluster subdivision tool in the county currently that allows properties out there to create lots that are small, like 1 acre lots. And that's a concern if we're going to be urbanizing that area in the future. We don't want small lots. We want to keep those lots as big as we can. So with that change, that would allow us to, they would be required to use our code to review that. It might require some amendments to our own code to adopt, to administer that, but we felt that was a good idea. Again, that's not subject to city review. It's something that the county will be reviewing on its own.
Scott?
Yes.
So we're saying that they can't, we're wanting to prohibit in some way from them doing subdivisions while they're in the holding area, so that they can't.
At least of the small size. The cluster development was the biggest concern, because we've actually seen a little bit of that in our area, and it's a tool that a property owner can choose to use out there. But like I said, would create a lot of problems if we had 5 1-acre lots in the middle of our UGB area expansion. That would cause a lot of problems in terms of how efficiently we could urbanize that.
So, I guess, so that doesn't create any, I guess what comes to mind is like property owner rights. So they have not chosen to come into our UGB expansion area, but now we're limiting what they can do with their lots. There's no issues with that. I'm just trying to
Well,
process.
I think they could still do larger lot types of subdivision, so it doesn't limit them completely, but it specifically the 1 acre, the cluster would be a change, I guess, to what they can do. You don't get more density with a cluster subdivision, but it allows you to cluster them in smaller areas. So it's not reducing the amount of lots that they could create, it's just how they arrange the lots.
Oh, okay.
In terms of that, you used the word cluster, and I'm assuming that's the word they're using in their code?
The county code?
In the county code, and in the county code, those can be lots as small as 1 acre each.
It's 1 acre,
But
it might go smaller, but it's around that area.
I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
and what I'm hearing you say is that you would like them to change their code language to remove the cluster code language as it applies to Sisters, as it applies to all of Deschutes County.
Basically, it would allow, it would allow or require that they go through, if a property owner is in the UGB and they want to subdivide, that they would have to go through they'd have to adhere to our subdivision standards.
Once they're in the holding zone.
Right, so in essence, back to your question, I think it does to some degree change the property rights, because once they're in our holding zone, then they have to, if they want to divide that property down, they have to do it within the parameters that we've set rather than the parameters that the county previously had set, which might be more advantageous, might not, I really don't know. I don't have that kind of property to do this to. That's not unusual in my mind to have that kind of language when areas are bought into a UGB, to sort of have the jurisdiction that oversees that new area, even though the tax base stays with the county. But the planning and development in that area typically does pertain or subserve itself, whatever the word is, to the new agency that will have control over that piece of property, which would be the City of Sisters. And it's specifically for those kinds of purposes. I've seen it done elsewhere. I'm not sure if I were a homeowner, I'd be really happy about it, but it's not uncommon.
Just to be clear, since it is already RR10 out there, it would be if somebody had a 40-acre parcel and they wanted to build 4 houses, but they wanted to cluster them on one corner of the parcel, then so they could do 4 1-acre lots, but the remainder of the parcel would still have to be undeveloped.
It'd be like it would be a restriction on that,
Yeah.
on the development of the rest of it.
So it would really only apply to people who already have 10 or more acres, because once you're kind of under that 10,
Yeah.
you can't
That's
really subdivide.
That's where the R10
Yeah.
comes from, is
Yeah.
the minimum lot size. Even though there's properties that are smaller than 10, they were created prior.
Or, yeah.
prior.
Yeah.
So there aren't a lot of properties out there that would even qualify for something like that.
There's a handful that could still subdivide, have big enough parcels.
Does it require a Measure 56 notice, or because the density is not changing, it doesn't?
That's a good question.
Well, that's a question for the
Yeah.
this is the city is not processing this. This is something
Right.
for the county to determine, and it doesn't. I mean, I guess it depends on whether you've assumed that or feel that it's reducing development capabilities on a property. It's not reducing the allowable lots. It's just how you can configure them.
I
So.
just wanted to understand, so that if it comes back, we've talked about it and understand what it was that we were saying.
Yeah,
I appreciate the conversation.
Well, yeah, I think this is one of those weird places where it starts to cross between city rights and future city rights and current landowners' rights. I've worked within some of the UGB areas that are outside the city of Bend. And they use this tool to have subdivisions that were out in the county, but the utilities are out, the city utilities are already out there because people have used this tool. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's just how it is right now. There are places that are in the county, right outside of Bend, that are subdivisions. They're bigger lots, they're usually more expensive homes, and they eventually get brought in, but they're not used for what we're trying to do, which is make some more density and get some more housing. So I think that when you start to talk about mirroring Bend anything, I kind of want to take a closer look at it, just because we don't always want to do things that Bend does. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So I just want to look at that a little closer, this part of it, for many different reasons.
Get you some more information on that.
Yeah.
And I think in some of those neighborhoods, the clustering was more because of requests through Land Watch, and having clustering of homes for wildlife passage and stuff like that. So it was kind of a different.
It's a good thing if the properties remain rural.
Yeah.
Because it allows more open space and wildlife corridors, but problematic when you want to urbanize it.
Yeah, and I don't think the intention of that was ever going to be urbanized. It was really going to be because it was bumping up against Shevlin Park and Forest Service and stuff. They knew they were never really going to go much farther than that. So that was, if we're talking about the same areas,
I know it's exactly what you're talking about, as the west side kind of over there. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I included the joint management agreement in your packet, but basically it's an agreement that the county has with each municipality in the county to determine how to administer and process changes to areas within a city's urban growth area. And it's meant to provide an orderly transition of land and services from the county to city jurisdiction and administration as the sisters UGA transition from rural to urban character. So it's intentional in that it provides the city the ability to have input to future development in the county that's going to be future city land. So that to Councilor Ross's point about how it kind of crosses over, it's an opportunity for us to make sure that area stays rural and that it is urbanizable in the future. And so it also delegates or it addresses which entities process changes to regulations within those areas. And within the UGA, or the unincorporated growth area of Sisters, the city the agreement basically requires that the county delegate to the city the responsibility for processing the amendments. It requires that the City Planning Commission hold a hearing, which we held last Thursday, and they recommended approval unanimously. And then it requires that the City Council review and comment on the Planning Commission recommendation. We interpret that to be that we need to hold a public hearing and provide the ability for people to provide testimony. And then within 5 days of that, provide the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, who have 90 days to schedule a hearing date after that. The board is the final body to approve or deny these changes.
Which board? You've just mentioned 5.
OCC?
Sorry, you're confusing me a little.
I'm sorry, the Board of County Commissioners are the final approving body.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Since we're changing some things, I think it's a mistake in the
Proposed.
the agreement, the ancient agreement, because the definition for UUGA is those land areas lying within the urban growth boundary but outside the city limits of the city of Redmond. So is there an opportunity to change that?
Copy paste job and not a very good one at that.
Yes, is there a way to clean that up? Because it,
Well, it's interesting.
A little bit of a
The county's actually,
I kind of want to do some stuff out there.
the county's approached us about updating the joint
Walking over
management
the pool.
agreement. We're starting to do that with Redmond, and I think it's time to do that. So when we get a time, an appropriate time, I think that's something we should definitely look at.
Okay.
And we'll definitely change it to Sisters.
The Redmond Ooga.
I will say that when you included the original agreement as attachment 2, I was scrolling down through it the first time and, boy, the count India's a better word processor. Somebody typed that sucker. I got all the way to the end and realized what it was.
So let's dive into the actual amendments a little bit here. This is the section of Title 21, basically the classification of zoning districts, and it kind of defines what zone districts a properties in the urban growth boundary can utilize. And again, the landscape management is in there now in their code, but it was a oversight when they amended their code in 2004 to remove landscape management from the zone. They just didn't remove it from the actual table. We're proposing to put it back in.
Scott, just a quick question.
Yeah.
My eyes are good, but they're not that good.
Mm-hmm.
Will we be able to get this portion of the slide deck after the meeting?
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to read that in greater detail than I'm capable of doing here.
Sure.
Thank you.
And so this is kind of the nitty-gritty of the amendment here, where we are proposing to strike out some provisions cross out in red, and then add new zoning base zones and combining zones in underline and bold. I mentioned that there was an existing floodplain district in the Title 21. There were mistakenly 3 of them in here, so we only really want to add 1. And the little asterisk basically means that it's referencing back to Title 18. That's the more robust floodplain zone. We added rural residential 10 because we had the opportunity to do so, and that means that we will now not be requesting a rezone as part of our urban growth boundary amendment, because if these are passed, we won't need to do that. We also took the opportunity to add multiple use agricultural 10. Potentially there's some of those zone properties in the future that might want to take advantage of this. The landscape management combining zone, which is a scenic preservation zone, and then the airport safety combining zone and the wildlife area combining zone were the ones that we proposed, and we worked with the county staff pretty closely to come up with these potential zones. And so that's what we're proposing to add. And then we're adding this section 2108.015 that basically makes mention that we're retention of Title 8 zoning designations within the Sisters urban growth area. Land added to the Sisters urban growth boundary may retain Deschutes County zoning designations and combining zones listed in Deschutes County Code Section 1812.010E as interim holding zoning, and continue to apply in lieu of the districts otherwise listed in the section until the land is annexed into the City of Sisters. So in doing so, this should address those concerns about any of those Goal 5 resources being unprotected.
I will tell you the landscape management zone works very well for waterways, but it works horribly for highways. Because when you go down Highway 20, everything on both sides on the way to Bend is supposed to be in that landscape management zone, and none of it, you still have to pay for it when you develop out there, but none of it's enforced. And you know, some of those properties out there just look really bad. And so I like the zone because it really does protect waterways, and it's really strict in that regard. And it's restrictive for those waterways, but it is absolutely the opposite for highways, and it's kind of dumb. I wish they would enforce it better, because you see basically junkyards on the way to Bend and many of those properties, and nobody says a word. Anyway.
So this will come back to you all in a public hearing on the 26th.
26th?
The 26th of August, yeah. And, I will not be here, but Matt Martin has agreed to pinch hit for me, and we also have somebody from MIG who has been helping us through this process available for the presentation and questions.
I didn't
So,
know we could get pinch hitters.
This is like one of 100 detours on this UGB tour, and thank you for maneuvering through it and your team. It's shocking how many unexpected things come up, but I appreciate you working with the planning team at the county, who obviously are not as superstar as we are. So just saying, because we're a superstar.
We've had to stay nimble, but we like our working relationship with the staff over there, so that's helping.
Scott, were MIG consulting services required to get to this point with these text amendments?
They certainly assisted, and were in all the meetings that we had multiple meetings with county staff trying to figure out what the solution is to this problem, knowing that it was integral to our UGB amendment and the timeline that we're under. So MIG was invaluable in creating these exhibits and getting the application, helping getting the application ready to the county on quick notice.
So some of those hours are what we're going to see in our next conversation.
Yeah,
It's actually helpful. I was wondering the same thing when I was looking at the budget, saying, well, wait a minute. Good.
We've got the city public hearing on the 26th, and then county planning commission meets again 27th.
Mm-hmm.
And will they be made aware of the results of our August 26th hearing? Do they need to be informed on that?
We'll make that part of our presentation,
Okay.
And we're required within 5 days of the city decision to notify them of and transmit the record to the county of all the proceedings.
Is there an appeal period for that city public hearing for these?
Which the council?
What we're doing.
For the city public hearing? Yeah.
I think that because you're not the final approving body, it would be the county's appeal process from the board's decision, the board of
Okay.
county commissioners' decision. But the intent is that on the 27th for the planning commission meeting with the county, that they will review their package of amendments first, and then our UGB amendment the same night, the second hearing.
Big night, big week.
Yeah, big August. Anything else, or any other questions for Scott or Jordan? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much. I'll adjourn this workshop and we'll reset the room and we'll start the city council meeting.
Jordan's a jerk.
All right, I'd like to call to order the regular Sister City Council meeting for August 12th, 2026. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm busy.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Letts,
Here.
Council President McDougall. Here. Councilor Creedon,
I'm eating, but yeah, I'm here.
Councilor Ross,
Under the giant pancake.
Councilor Kellerman.
Here.
All right. I will start this meeting the same way I started the last one in case anybody's joining in. We have a new sound system in the room. We do not have personal microphones or anything like that. The microphones in the room can possibly pick up all conversations in all corners of the room, so be mindful of that if you're in the audience or need watermelon or
Ethics laws, whatever.
And also, if anybody online is having trouble with the sound, you're welcome to make a comment of that, since this is the first evening we've been using the system. So thank you for your patience as we try to improve our sound system in here. It's been problematic for a while, so we're looking forward to our new system here. All right, can we have an approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Visitor communication. Do we have any visitor communication today?
We have Peter Huber.
Sorry to be the only one.
That's okay. When you approach, you can just state your name and
Speak into the microphone.
speak into the microphone.
I need to grow a little bit.
Yeah. I'm gonna try something different out here and not require addresses anymore, and just say if you live within or outside the city.
Okay. Peter Hoover, Director of Sisters Habitat for Humanity within the city. My appreciation to the council and to Robin and Sean and Mickey of COIC for taking into consideration the MIRL program. This is something that clearly would be beneficial to Sisters Habitat as the largest producer of affordable housing within the city of Sisters, but also for future development that may occur from other developers that may develop an appetite for producing homes in the Sisters area. And I mean that sincerely. Thank you, because it's been a long process. The the program has been around since 2014, as you know, and so it's very good to see it come to fruition. I certainly understand the challenges that are faced by the smaller communities. You know, as I'm sure most of you or all of you are aware, there are communities that are in the rural areas of Oregon that do not have a planning department. They have to contract it out, or they may have one person on staff. So the program without somebody like COIC coming in really makes it impossible for those communities to participate. So thank you for setting the precedent for other entities that will benefit outside of Sisters by engaging with COIC. We'd like to emphasize that timeliness is an important matter here that was brought up by some of the council members in your conversation with COIC. One of the things that I didn't hear them mention, that there was a clawback of $20 million that already occurred in the MIRL program because of underutilization of the program. It started out $75 million. It's now $55 million that's available, and I'd hate to see any additional funds be pulled away. And just to emphasize one of the things that was mentioned by COIC, there is a February deadline for the $10 million that is reserved for rural areas. And so if we miss that opportunity, then that's something that probably would not come back again. It's, in my eyes, potential to be very beneficial here in Sisters, particularly helpful for workforce. You know, I'll use our own large commons project that you're hopefully all familiar with, and hopefully going to come to the groundbreaking on September 18th. But yes, we've already moved dirt, so you know, it's not exactly a true groundbreaking, but nonetheless, hopefully you'll all be there. But this is particularly helpful for workforce housing, because if it were not for the generosity and foresight that the City of Sisters and the Urban Renewal Agency had for your grant for workforce housing, there was no other funding. And we're doing it out of pocket, and our pocket isn't that deep. So the MIRL funding in particular, going up to 120% AMI, will be potentially very helpful to us and other producers of workforce housing, again, in particular in the future. It also helps, I realize it's gap funding, but it also helps with some of the uncertainties that are out there. As you may have heard a few days ago, the president imposed a 50% tariff on Canadian goods. And since a good percentage of the lumber in the United States comes from Canada, that has created a new uncertainty for us as to what our pricing is going to be for cost of construction. And so having this gap funding available, if the city does elect to proceed in an agreement with COIC, will help reduce some of the uncertainties that exist there. I mentioned it to the COIC representatives previously, and then re-emphasized it tonight. I've had conversations with Michael Teschebold of Governor Kotek's office, and I would suggest that the council pursue this with COIC in that the reporting requirements for the MIRL program are very, very similar in many respects to what LIFT-funded projects require. And so we have to report on income qualification. We have to give the evidence of income qualification. We have to report when homes sell and give verification that the new homeowner falls within the income restrictions of the LIFT program. So I mention this because it is a lot of overlap with the administration that goes on with MIRL. And so I would encourage you to, in your conversations with COIC, to see what synergies can be utilized in that regard. One request that I have is, please do not include the terms deed restriction in any of your language with MIRL. You know, that's posed one or two challenges in the past, and it would be appreciated if you could leave that out of anything with the MIRL program. Final request or suggestion is that in your conversations with COIC, you ask them to explore intercreditor agreements that would need, I'm assuming, would need to be in place with MIRL, because they're going to want some form of a lien on the property, would be my hunch. That would be a natural thing for a creditor to want. And we already have LIFT liens on the property, and so you know, it's within the same organization, but there's going to have to be some form of intercreditor agreement as to subordination of those loans. And so if that's something that you can work with COIC on or address in your intergovernmental agreement with COIC, that would be beneficial not only to us, but also to other developers that might want to use the MIRL program. So again, bottom line, my thanks to all of you for continuing the conversations with COIC, and hope to be celebrating with you that there's been a successful process that is achieved with COIC, and that maybe we can get some money. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Just to clarify, the rural deadline was when?
The rural funding set aside is February.
February 27.
And so what will happen in February of 27 is that that set aside will evaporate, and assuming they don't claw it back, it will go into funds that are available to throughout the entire state, whether it be urban or rural. So Portland, for example, would be able to come in with the project.
Thank you.
We qualify as rural, right?
Under most programs that I've been exposed to, yes, we're lumped into Deschutes County, and most but not all programs will consider us as being, here in Sisters, as being rural. And MIRL, unless they changed, considered us as rural.
Rural MIRL.
Rural MIRL, yes.
Over. All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to, oh, I'm sorry, is there anybody online?
If anyone on Zoom would like to participate in visitor communication, please raise your hand now.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No nays. And on the consent agenda, oh,
I just had an observation on the consent agenda,
okay.
but were you going to say something first?
I was just going to list it for people listening on what was the consent agenda, so.
Go ahead.
You want me to go ahead? Okay. And this includes the minutes from the July 8th workshop, July 8th regular meeting, approval of city manager contract amendment, approval of surplus equipment for Lazy Z hay cutting, and approval of the League of Cities annual conference attendance for all councilors.
Everybody's going.
Yeah, that was my observation. I just wanted to point out that this conference in October will use up 94% of our training budget for the fiscal year. So maybe next year we need to think about that.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Where's Joe at? He's the budget guy.
All right. On to council business. One item tonight, we just have a discussion and consideration of a motion to approve a professional services agreement amendments between the City of Sisters and more, Iocafano Goldsman Incorporated, also known as MIG, and Scott Woodford bringing this to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good council. As you mentioned, this is a request to amend the agreement, the professional services agreement between the City of Sisters and MIG. That extends the completion deadline for the project, revises the scope of work based on some refinement of the area planning process, and increases the funds necessary to complete the work. So the original agreement was for $239,000 and $239,106, and the completion date was originally supposed to be December 31st, 2025. The contract was amended to extend the completion date to January 1st, 2026, or on January 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2026, to account for work tasks beyond the original scope. So basically, the original scope covered the adoption of the UGB and a few of the activities of the area plan. It did not actually account for all the activities necessary to complete an area plan. At the time, it was let's make sure we get to the UGB adoption, and then once we get a better picture of what we're dealing with, and we always planned on refining the scope of the area plan as we got a little farther down the line. There's still enough funds to complete the UGB adoption process and a little bit left over, but there's not enough money basically to complete the area planning process and the robust process that we envision for the area planning to continue to really involve the community like we have with the UGB amendment. So we had MIG put together some revised costs to take us through take us from where we are to the end of the area planning process to account for that. We've also dealt with some unforeseen issues that have come up through the process that required some work that was out of scope on the part of the consultant. I have to say, in general, they have been wonderful to work with and efficient in their time and their billing, but this process has taken a few zigs and zags and still does, and I think that accounts for the reason for the need for additional funds. So basically, what we're requesting is taking the original agreement of $239 up to $300,807, I believe, and which is will be a net of $61,000 additional dollars needed. The accounts for the fact that there will be about $6,000 left in the budget once the UGB amendment application adoption is met. So that's essentially what we're proposing. I will entertain any questions that you might have.
So Scott, I know it was in the documentation that there was a $100,000 grant that we got from DLCD that was part of the original. And I'm kind of losing track of grants because I appreciate that we do get many. Did we get another one from DLCD as well for this project? I know we got one for the analysis project, but are we?
We did get the $75,000 grant for assistance with infrastructure planning as part of the area plan process. So those funds some of those funds could potentially be used to help pay for MIG, but it was really intended to hire civil engineer and transportation engineer to really take a look and assist with that area plan process in terms of the needs for infrastructure as we start to plan that area out. We also applied for a grant that we're going to use to hire an economist to do some infrastructure funding analysis work. We were just informed last week that we did not get that grant. And the reason for that was that it's specifically for communities that have had their UGB adopted, but not yet, hasn't had annexation. We were told to apply anyway, even though we were not quite approved, and we didn't get it, and I asked that was the reason why. So unfortunately, didn't get that one. But we will continue to seek opportunities for money to help pay for these tasks.
Thanks for walking through it. It's helpful just to remind myself, have you helped me remember what,
Yeah, there's a
where
lot,
the money is coming from and going to? Thank you.
there's a lot of, yeah, moving parts there. Any other questions that I can answer?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
No, I have good questions. I had actually a smart comment, and I'm not going to make it.
Okay. Thank you. So when I look at our community development budget, I mean, we don't really have a line item specific to UGB. There's one for contracted services. Is that solely MIG, or is that 140,000 for this fiscal year?
So that includes some of the money that for the grant that we get, we have to pay out of pocket and then get reimbursed after the work is done. So some of that money will be used for that, plus the 35,000 that we had originally budgeted to help augment the area planning process. That kind of happened before, we started going through these kind of detours with the county, that has since increased the costs to the city. So that contracted budget accounts for a couple of things, a couple of those things.
Okay. So we need to get this done, right? We all agree. And I think you've been doing excellent work on it. Thank you for everything. And, we're just marching ahead. But one of the things I have a request is that, we're kind of, you said the contract ended back on June 30th, and here we are in August. I feel like we're being reactive. I'd like to see if we can get a little more proactive, because what I see here in this amendment or additional agreement here is a very defined scope of work related to area planning. Exactly what deliverables, how many meetings, the types of meetings. Never heard of a charrette before, or it was called.
My least favorite activity.
Yeah. But history has told us, and reality is that scope of work will be impacted again, just like the first agreement. We know that we will probably have appeals to deal with and may need MIG's assistance with that. If we go past January 1st, there'll be reanalysis work, because this agreement we're talking about here goes all the way through to June 30th. So guaranteed in that window between now and then, depending on when this agreement starts, we will have more unforeseen issues that could come up and diversions. So do we take the time now to put contingency into an agreement, or do we just keep going like this, where we're being reactive and just adding more money again when we run out of our funds here? And then also, I'd just like more transparency. When we start going off of our original scope, I think we should track that, and I think we should have all be aware that maybe a decision we're making to delay something or wait or what have you does have some impact here. I think we need that full transparency and understanding that more. And I'd also like to know how much we end up having to pay for these unforeseen circumstances, what that running total is, and what's our burn rate versus what we've actually been delivering in terms of the scope that was listed here. So there's just some ideas that I'm throwing out there that I think would be beneficial to understand. Thank you.
We always want to know when it's us, for sure. I mean, because that's what we can control up here.
Yeah.
That's definite. I mean, that's for everything, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could put in contingency in here for those kinds of things, but I think it's such an unknown in terms of what the scope is. I'm not sure. You can either put something in too big that it sounds ridiculous, or not enough and have to come back anyway. I think that you at least try to give it the best snapshot that you have, and fine tune it as much as you can so it's as accurate as can be. And then when it changes, you might have to come back again. I just don't know if you can guess what, if we do get appealed, which is possible, what that will require as far as their services versus the legal services. The legal services probably would be more significant than what the
Similar
energy
situation.
would be, but it's hard to predict that.
So it sounds like we don't really know how much the UGB amendment is going to cost us.
We can do it under the assumption that, with the assumptions that we know, I guess. But I think that's as close as we can get it right now, because there's so much that, you know, it could go sideways and we just don't know what that's going to be or how much it's going to cost and time it's going to take to do that.
Do we need MIG's consulting services for the annexation code that we're trying to work on?
No, we've been using a little, our legal budget for that.
I think that your comments are spot on. I think that we, both as budgeters and you folks as the budget preparers, try to be conservative in the numbers that you ask for, kind of best case scenario. And obviously in this situation, our best case was not really close to what the mark was going to be. I think I'd like to see, if we have another project like this, something this big, that's going to require a lot of staff time, I'd rather see a bigger number start in the budget with some detail as to what it is. So when we say contracted services, that's a pretty broad statement because it includes a number of different entities. I think that to use an example for this, we're not going to need it again, one hopes, but use an example of this, contracted service underneath that, MIG, consulting services, a number, legal services, a number, related, and it might be under UGB and have a separate sort of a statement there. Because I think it's important for folks, when it's all said and done, to be able to see a total of what it has cost us to get to this point, and why it is very important when we make these decisions as a council and as a staff, that we do them with the idea that we aren't going to have to do them again for a long time. And there's a reason why. And so I think that's, I'm not finding fault, I'm not uncomfortable, but I think you raise a good point, which is that this kind of bumped a couple of times, and it probably will bump another time before we're done, depending on what happens. And I think in the end, from the perspective of being very transparent to the public, that ought to be a line item in and of itself, rather than under a general statement. Just a thought.
Yeah, well, for budgeting purposes, you know, honestly, the contingency, the general fund, is why it's there. Right?
Oh, yeah.
For these unforeseen circumstances.
Sure.
And honestly, like, having the budget authority for this contract to get a UGB amendment adopted was there, and the unforeseen circumstance then was the curveballs from the county, right?
Oh, yeah.
And also the threat of appeals and things like that, you know, we had an additional steering committee meeting, we had to do some MMB, you know, look and things like that, which ate into that budget that we were kind of holding aside for the area planning. You know, the decision point with the council is you're staring at a $60,000 contract amendment for, you know, an updated scope now that we know more about what we want out of an area plan, right? And we're making that as a contract amendment as opposed to a different, you know, separate contract for the area plan, just because it kind of naturally flows together. It's not uncommon in, you know, these type of big planning projects, or, you know, more common in complex design projects or something where you'll have amendments and scope changes and things like that. I think to Councilor Pellerin's, you know, comments, we could do a better job proactively of saying, hey, you know, all this stuff that's happening at the county and the additional meetings we're having and stuff is going to have a budget impact, and the contract amendment is going to have to come. Timing wise, you know, we're a little bit late here. Things happen, you know, summer, and we're, you know, rapidly working on a dynamic situation where we need consultant help to get this on a tight deadline to have this thing adopted by January 1st. So I think that's the lesson learned of just keeping you apprised of not just what's happening with the UGB and these type of projects, but what that means for the contract and for the budget, so that we have this conversation proactively, not at the moment of like, hey, we have this contract amendment so we can continue this work.
Well, and I think the reason I mentioned for something this significant, having it have its own line item rather than being underneath the contracted services heading. It could be a subheading, but I think it's important that something that in this is UGB amendment process consultation be a line item in whatever we present later at the completed budget or something. Somewhere that number has to be shown as to what it cost us to do this, as opposed to having it put in with the other sorts of, you know, I don't want to say nickel and dime, but the other sorts of contracted services that we also do on a regular basis every year to run the city. That's my concern. I'm not so much the change. I think we probably should have put more money in there to begin with, but it's as much to be able to be transparent as to what this process is actually costing the city to go through. As opposed, and that's my, I don't think we're trying to hide it, I don't think there's any, but I just think that it kind of lays to the fact that maybe we need to think a little bit in the next budget cycle about big things we have coming up and maybe putting them in as a line item under contracted services.
We can add, I mean, we can always add more line items. Joe loves to do that. I mean, there's
I want to make the budget bigger.
These, you know, curveballs or whatever we're defining.
Oh, they're gonna come.
You know, it's going to be probably a legal services amendment, right? As we work through that, the potential of the appeals will be another probably amendment. But to back up, you know, this contract started a year and a half, 2 years ago, right? So, you know, it's hard to, what you want the consultant or the contractor to define a very, you know, clear scope of work and the tasks that it's going to take to get us to a UGB adoption. They've done this many times before, but at the time, they can't anticipate that, oh, the county's going to bring up some issues with their code, or there's going to be a late rezone application that's going to make, you know, the public want to, you know, pause for a second. Like, so those things are, you know, are hard to anticipate and hard to budget for when you don't know. And, you know, we're stuck in between, like, do you inflate a contract amount and give them cushion that they might end up spending, or do you hold them, you know, to a tight scope at the beginning, and then as situations arise, you do these amendments?
Again, thinking it from a budget perspective, not from a particular contract. I'm with you. You keep them tight and you amend as necessary. But I think putting in a line item for consultation services related to UGB expansion or something like that with a number in it is useful, because at the end of the year, when we reconcile the budget, that number would become accurate.
Yeah, it stays there historically too, so people can see.
That's, yeah.
Comment?
Yeah. So in all the discussion, I tend to agree with we had unforeseen circumstances, and so that I understand why there's a contract amendment. I don't have a problem with that myself. I would like to just echo the long-term, I think we've discussed this before, of when all is said and done, having some idea of how much it did cost and what the curveballs cost us. Just I'd like to be able to, not because the community is saying we did anything wrong, but I would like to be able to explain to them what, you know, why it took longer, what some of the extra expenses were, because it's, sometimes these things come up and it just, I mean, it's very expensive, but these are external inputs that we have no control over, and just I don't know, I feel like it's my responsibility to ask for just a breakdown, you know, in the end of what the appeals cost us and what the, you know, the county's incomplete code cost us, you know, things like that. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people ask me, well, how much does that cost? I mean, couldn't tell you. Couldn't even, I mean, I don't know if I could get within hundreds of thousands of dollars, to be honest with you. So it would be nice, as Gary said, to have that in a line item for historical purposes, so we can always go back and go. Because I don't think we could look back 6 years ago when we were doing the comprehensive plan and try and figure out how much of that was for the UGB and all the steps we've taken since. But we can do better in the future. We can't really change the past, but we can do better.
We can definitely go back and total up from when we started with the housing.
We'll want that. We'll want some of that.
Yeah, it's closing in on.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of value in having that total number, I think, just for general public knowledge, for our knowledge, I would really like to factor in also volunteer hours of not only everybody up here over the last 5 years that this has been going on, but also the Planning Commission, and our other volunteer years with to not discount the amount of work. And I think it's really valuable for the community to know that. I think it's valuable for the county to know that, that we just didn't pull this idea out of our head 3 weeks ago. I think it's valuable for the state to know that.
I think so too.
And to have a number to put in front of them and say, by the way, this is what this looked like. And I'm hoping, knock on wood, compared to other cities, we've all heard the horror stories, we're still, this is a pretty smooth process compared to a lot of cities in Oregon. So, I think there's a lot of value in that, not to or Joe has the spreadsheets. We can,
It's helpful, right?
as you add more work, I just think it's been an idea I think we've all been talking about, was like, we'd really like to see the number, just because it's been such a monumental task.
It's helpful to prove we can do it too, and just get a number, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think it's perfectly fine for us, council, to be able to communicate this, and staff, that we anticipate these curveballs. They're not going to be a surprise to us. We anticipate this might happen, what have you, and then the completely unknown. That's showing forward thinking. That's showing proper planning and expectations, rather than us being totally surprised. So I think it's good for us to communicate to the public that we foresee there will be these situations. And we're fully aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a plan.
All right, that was, lots of awesome points and great discussion. Thank you. Anything else?
Do we need a motion on this?
Yes.
Are we ready for a motion on this?
All right, I am ready.
I move to approve a professional services agreement amendment between the City of Sisters and more,
Kafano?
thank you,
I don't know.
Goldsmith Inc., better known as MIG,
I second.
MIG.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 I shouldn't read amendments when I can't pronounce
And
it.
Just call them MIG.
no nays on that. I like MIG, I think. That's what I've heard at least.
Just for
thank you.
clarification, Scott, the project management, is it $1,500 a month or $1,800 a month? Because the staff report and the agreement were different.
Which part are you looking
The
at?
project management budget assumes a cost of $1,500 per month for a 6-month period, or $1,800 a month. It's on the first page of the agreement.
And the contract is probably the,
It's in the staff report as $1,500 and the contract is $1,800.
You talking about in the scope of work, or the
So
last page?
if you go to Exhibit A, it says $1,800 in the first paragraph for the project management per month. I don't know the page. First page of Exhibit A.
oh yeah,
Says 1,800. You have that?
rocks.
See that?
Okay, and then the staff report said 1,500, so I don't know which one's accurate.
The staff report or I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying now.
1,000 divided by 6, is that?
That's,
I think it's supposed to be
I'm not
1,800.
sure. That's a good question.
I think 1,800 is probably the right number.
Typo.
Once the,
I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
if you
The
take,
second page of the staff report.
it's closer to 1,800, so if you take the
18.
project management coordination, task 1 on exhibit B is 10,660. And if you divide that by 6,
Okay.
it's close to 1,800.
Okay.
They just do it per month, they don't do it by hour.
There's a schedule of the rates on that Exhibit B. What their estimated hours, right, for the principal versus the project manager. They'll bill based on, and then some of that's right, how many project management team meetings are held, the staff, and recapping public meetings and things.
Probably just a typo. Staff report?
Yeah, I would think so.
That's fine.
We approved it, though,
Got it. Thank you. Scott.
regardless.
Your typo.
Well, it's the overall number is the important number.
Thank you. All right, on to other business. Does city manager have any response to prior meeting public comments?
We have one comment, no questions or response.
Okay, on to staff comments.
Right, I'll lead off here. City council elections filing deadlines coming up fast. We have August 18th for incumbents and then August 25th. So all that information about elections and the process and dates can be found on our webpage.
You too could sit here.
For free. I still have
Free.
time.
It's a really good deal.
I sent around a little survey about the LOC legislative priorities. We do this every couple of years. They ask cities to review the policies, the issues that they've identified as the top, issues for legislative action. Unfortunately, it does take a little bit of reading because you got to go to that manual or that handbook and look up what they mean by those different things. But if you get a chance, identify what your top 5 are, what are some of those, and then we just submit a similar survey back to the LOC. And if you have any other comments, you can just email them directly to me. I can forward that to the LOC as well. They'll have space for us to kind of, if they missed anything this year, for example, right? There might be a few that you can think of.
Jordan, did you give us a deadline on that?
If you could do it by,
Tomorrow?
Yeah, the next meeting in August 26th. We would have the first meeting in September to finalize if we need to, but it'd be nice to be able to kind of narrow them down on August 26th. Okay. So if you could do it the Friday before that, which would be the 21st, that would be great. We've been working with our regional solutions, Scott Aycock, coordinator here for Central Oregon, on a Sisters Community Priorities meeting, and that would be on September 22nd. We're working on finalizing the agenda. This would be one of those things that it's a chance for staff to share with our local agent or state agency partners on what are major projects we're working on, major challenges we might have, hear from them, questions they might have about our priorities. Maybe they can identify some funding opportunities or other things that we can work with them on. Ideally, we avoid a quorum for this type of meeting, given the potential of talking about city business and could lead to unintended deliberations. So one thing that we're thinking about is when we finish that agenda, we'll be able to send that out, and it's kind of like an all-day thing. There's like a tour that we're going to be doing at the afternoon, but in the morning there'll be several different agenda topics, and maybe a couple counselors can pop in and out depending on what topics you might be interested in, whether that's growth management, UGB stuff, or public infrastructure, economic development will kind of be the main themes for that agenda. So we'll prepare some more details about that, but I don't know if this is kind of a newer thing Regional Solutions is doing, but Scott has done some in more of the smaller Central Oregon communities so far. I met today with the Republic Services new regional manager, Wes Davis, and I invited him to come to your next council meeting to introduce himself. So remember we said goodbye to Erica a couple meetings ago, so they have a replacement. Now Wes I think he's coming from Lane, Idaho.
We'll have to see how he takes tomatoes to the noggin.
I'm gonna say, you're punching him or us?
We got to get the first shots in.
We'll be very welcoming.
welcoming to Sisters.
The mayor and I attended a meeting with Oregon Water Resources Department with other COCO cities. This was a COCO sort of meeting invite to coincide with Oregon Water Resources leadership and policy folks that were in town. Basically to talk about the extension of the Deschutes mitigation program, which there's a legislative concept that they're working on that is a priority for COCO, that COCO has been spearheading. And so it's good to kind of hear from them, have that 1 hour meeting and lunch, and then talk also about the opportunities for the artificial recharge, which is especially important for Redmond as they look at the potential loss of, or the impacts of their groundwater due to the piping projects that are proposed for the irrigation districts. A couple other public works updates. Still some thunder from Jackson, but pass on some updates from Paul. Adams Avenue, if you haven't had a chance to head on a portion of that, we got some fresh pavement. It's great to drive on. Sidewalk, sawstone, curbing, so now today they were starting the process of planting those street trees. So those are getting in. Starting to look like a real road, isn't it?
Have they paved past Habitat yet? That's what the pavement ended?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yesterday, and then they will finish
Okay, just curious.
Like a habitat project or restore?
Restore, because during the hang, that was still gravel in front of.
That portion is going to be completely paved up to Fir tomorrow, and then by mid-September, the more residential portion of the project will be paved and complete.
Just curious.
So, yeah, so right now, street trees are going in. The last things that will sort of happen in September and be substantially completed by the end of September would be like the lighting and the last landscaping and things like that. So yeah, it's looking good. It's I know it's been for those that live on Adams and the businesses and stuff, it's pretty impactful. This is the pull the Band-Aid sort of approach, right? Rather than having lane closures and a prolonged year-long construction project, tear it all out, get it all done, and we'll be
Get out of the way.
pretty happy when it's out of the way here in October and we can do a nice ribbon cutting celebration.
Has that process been pretty smooth?
It has, Paul's having now as a capital projects manager, he's handling all the calls and people that may have questions and issues. He's out there constantly speaking with the contractors and working through little things that pop up and all that, so.
I think he's personally talked to everybody on that road, at least once.
More than once. Yeah.
At least once. He knows them all.
Yeah, and overall, it's gone pretty smooth. I think they're within budget, and looking forward to having that done. Speaking of done, I think we're closed out now on the landscaping, except for the final plantings for the roundabout, which with that all headed towards completion, that was on budget as well. And then you may have noticed some construction activity starting on the Elm Street pathway, finally. The bridge has been ordered. They're working on the delivery timelines and stuff for that, but that might be one of the last pieces. That takes time. So, and then also reporting out on the road safety audit. It does look like there is looking very, very hopeful that ODOT has funding assistance for the low-hanging fruit, for striping, the signage, those easy kind of initial recommendations. It looks like they have a pot of funding for some safety projects, so that could be something that we see go into effect this fall as well, which is pretty exciting. There may be the potential for some of that funding to go for some other items on that list too, and on other.
Some of the bigger things.
Maybe. And at least the studies, we talked about some of those things that are a little bit more advanced, and then I don't know if I want to say publicly something else that we need to work on, but potential that we need to work with them on anyways. But
Get our hopes up.
I think the public will be highly receptive to all of those changes. Anything to help, I think, is good.
That'd be great.
And then, Mayor, Council, I thought this would also, we can, anytime in the last portion of this meeting, if you want to do a debrief on something that was consuming our town for the last
Consume our town.
Yeah. And
Thank God.
yeah, and, obviously this is second year in a row of faced with the wildfire incident. Aqua Butte fire, 27,000 acres, burned, up to 1,500 personnel on that fire. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone will have their own takes, but, thanks to ODF, the incident management teams, the unified incident management teams, again, did a great job getting here, getting on the ground, setting up, fire camp was set up, and once they were able to get that personnel in, I think we've felt like, okay, they know how to run it when the things are in place. We got the PIOs, we have the cooperators meetings to keep, our counselors and staff and other agencies informed. Like last year, there was certain parts of this fire that were scary, and evacuations. I think over 2,000 people evacuated, 10,000 became under a level 1, including the city of Sisters, which has not happened for a long time. And so, yeah, I mean, these are scary, stressful situations. I think the incident command team did a great job of communicating, having those three public meetings, one virtually, 2 in person. And, our thanks to them, Sisters Camp Sherman, DCSO, for doing their parts. I think we, again, learned a lot from this fire on, just working out the kinks. How do we work better together with that evacuation on that? I think it was a Wednesday evening. I think it was like, oh, okay, here's something that we can, anticipate a little bit better on how to safely evacuate folks. And that was just, the 2,000 folks that were evacuated north of town. And, thanks to council too for being there, being plugged in, attending those cooperators meetings and the public meetings, sharing information, giving us feedback, giving staff input on what type of messaging to put out, taking the tours, things like that are very important. And I think the public should, feel confident, feel good that the council was here, staff was here, your fire district was here, people from all around the state and even outside of the state. I think even at one point there was Ariel from Australia or New Zealand that came.
New Zealand.
Yeah, fighting that for that week. That was the #1 priority in the nation. So those are my words. Again, thank you, council, for being supportive and being a part of that process to help us on the staff level, get through this incident.
Are you doing everybody's comments?
Oh, I was saying if you want to continue talking about fire or not, or but.
Well, there was kudos even from the fire officials to City Public Works Department with the sandbags, and it just sounded like a great partnership and collaboration between all the groups. Like I was sharing with Jordan, I was getting about 3 updates every day. Some of them were repetitive, but I really enjoyed having more than having less. So I was totally fine with that. And just also following them on social media. The PIOs were fantastic on social media. It was, for being such a scary experience, it was a very well managed experience.
I agree. I would add to that very comment that I've been following some of the other fires, some because of interest and some because I know people in some of those areas. And the information dissemination of the 2 that I've been following, Roe, as well as the Grasshopper fire, their dissemination is nowhere near as good as what we had. We were getting 2 a day. They get 1 kind of in the middle of the day sometimes. It takes an hour to show up on their Facebook page. I just, the crew that we had here had really had their act together. And I would like to think that part of that was that the cooperation meeting was very well attended, both in person and online, by not just us, but by a number of other in the city. And that showed them there was interest. And they were very careful to get the word out to us on everything. And that it helped a lot. Just in meeting with people in town and asking what's going on and what do we know, being able to answer questions. I do think, I would say, this is not the time to or the place, but I am going to want to have some discussions about, did we inadvertently send ourselves into a problem? And I've told Jordan this, I'm not springing it on him. Looking at what happened here and then looking at what happened in Spokane, have we inadvertently, with some of our efficiency measures, painted ourselves into a corner with some things in terms of keeping our firefighters safe and keeping fire out of the community should it come in? And I think I'd like us to think out of the box about some of the perimeter areas of AA as we move forward, to try to create some separation of homes. Maybe the larger homes go out in there with some bigger lots, and setbacks so that our firefighters had that 300 foot opportunity to keep the fire out of the community and out of the houses. There's a lot of discussion there, and I'm not an expert, and I think we'll need to talk with some about it. But we're not so far down the planning process that we can't think about how do we try to make that new area, along with our building hardening standards, be a more defensible space for the firefighters' safety. Buildings that are 10 foot apart, burning like mad, they can't get, I'm not gonna go in between one and spray water, and they're not gonna either. So that will happen in Spokane. So let's think about that a little bit. No answers, no nothing, but Gary is gonna bring it back up, just fair warning. You might wanna think about that when you check that vote box. So, but it's just something that, nothing to do with UGB expansion itself, but just think about how we're gonna manage that land to ensure the safety of those residents that move in there and of the community in general in the future, because I don't think we've seen the last one.
Yeah, and we're working on having one of your special work sessions coming up, hopefully in September, to talk more about those wildfire resiliency goals and defensible space. And again, I think there's probably a lot of evidence now with this fire of, again, what defensible space did for the point protection, structural folks in those properties out there. There's continued momentum to build here, making some improvements in town.
Yeah, I've heard of a couple of citizen initiatives that will be forthcoming. People have different ideas, and they're not necessarily firefighters, and I think that it's going to be cool to see some of the ideas that spring out of nowhere and see if somebody comes up with something that nobody's thought of in a long time. But I know of at least one that I've heard about, and I think we're going to hear about it before the end of the year.
More ads?
Here's a few things.
We need about.
Just update on annexation. It's continuing to proceed. Held a workshop with the Planning Commission last week. That was only their second opportunity to hear it and to comment since we started. So it was good to bring them up to speed and kind of give them the benefit of the discussion so far, and that was helpful. I think they'll get up to speed really quickly. Tomorrow we're going to be hosting what I call an Affordable Housing Work Group. That group that came to council several months ago that helped answer questions and provide comment on the affordable housing piece of the ordinance. We're continuing to get some input from that group to help advise the city on what would be potentially good policy for housing requirements. And so I'll pass on that feedback. We've been continuing to get feedback, get them individually. I kind of want to get them all in a group and say, okay, I see you have a concern with this particular part. What would make it better? What would be your solution if you don't like it? So that we can come back to council and kind of advise on what that group feels is the best solutions to our housing section of that ordinance, so that council can make an informed decision on which way they want to go. So,
Scott, just to clarify, that's both the for-profit and the not-for-profit developers?
Yeah, good point. It's not just the affordable housing developers. It's also getting the input of several free market developers that also dabble in affordable housing. So it's good to get their perspective as well. And so that we'll report back on that at the August 19th special council workshop that we have 2 hours devoted to talking about annexation. Hopefully get to the point where we can start getting some consensus on some of these more, these bigger discussions, these meatier items that we've been continuing to talk about, so that we can prepare something for eventual adoption before the end of the year. As far as the other big project that we're working on, the code audit, we received the code audit report from the consultants this week. 36 pages of small lines of things that they found in our code that were some things that they picked out that were a combination of out of conformance with state law, or things that are maybe not best practices, things that they called to our attention, that are things that we may want to consider. I kind of compared it a little bit to when we went through the efficiency measures process. We had this whole menu of things that we could do, but we don't have to. We'll bring some of those forward to the Planning Commission and the Council, and we can decide as a community whether we want to implement those or not. The state law ones are, we have to comply with state law whether it's in our code or not. So it's helpful to get it in the code either by reference or by actually adopting the language verbatim. Those are things that we can't change. We have to comply, but there's a whole host of things that we could take a look at if we want to consider tools to boost housing supply or affordable housing, those kinds of things. So staff is continuing to, or starting to work through all that report and getting comments back to them. That'll help. Obviously, we can't take all this through all at once. It would be extremely overwhelming. So we'll have to prioritize some of this stuff. And so part of the process will be which ones we want to prioritize sooner rather than later. And then some of it will actually result in some code language that we will bring through for adoption at the end of this. Some of that will be just, here's recommended code language. You can put it on the shelf until you have an opportunity to bring it forward for approval. So Matt's the project manager on that one, and so that'll keep him busy for a while. And then we've been looking at planning permitting software. We've reached out to about 6 or 7 different companies that do planning permitting software, just to see what their tools are that they have available, what they can do for us, what it might cost. Not that we're heading down that direction, but it's something that we've internally discussed in terms of making it more efficient for the public to submit applications online, to take payments online. We can't do that currently, so I think there's some things that we could do to help improve service to the community, ways that an applicant can stay in tune with how their application's progressing. They can get a login, kind of like with the county building side, where they can communicate back and forth to the staff or get an update on where their project is. And a tool just to better archive old information so that it's more easily accessible for staff and hopefully more easily accessible for the public as well. So things we're kind of just doing some advanced research on that we might maybe consider utilizing in the future.
That would get a hallelujah out of me.
Yeah,
as one that uses the system, so.
Yeah, it's all meant to make the process more user-friendly for everyone.
It's just knowledge is power, you know what I mean? That's just all it is.
Those are the big projects we're working on.
Okay, thank you.
So the first of the bulb outs with gravel are at Cedar in Washington. That was done last week. We're still kind of trying to strategize on how to put gravel in bulb outs, not only quicker but safer, just a lot less wear and tear on staff. We're thinking of conveyor belt system out of a dump truck. A little bit challenging in the downtown core, but we're confident if we do it slow time of year, we can get most of downtown done in a couple days. So more to come on that. For the dog park, it is open. We're just looking to schedule a ribbon cutting ceremony. So more to come on that in the very near future. City Hall landscaping. Comments from the workshop were incorporated. We double checked our code to make sure that it is in compliance with that. So we have 100% plans and a cost estimate ready to go. We're looking at possibly a winter advertisement so that we can get plants ordered for a spring construction. Paul had all the big fun projects. I'll be moving on to events. Tomorrow we have another star party at Clemens Park at 9:30 p.m. And the Kiwanis Luau will be Saturday, August 22nd at Village Green Park, starting at 5 p.m. That is all I have, unless you folks have any questions.
Any comments from the neighbors along the Elm Street project, or are they all kind of prepared for it?
I have not heard any regarding the project itself.
Okay, great.
I want to say that town is always looking good for the most part, so thank you for Public Works and all the hard work they do. You're the biggest department we have, so thank you.
They do a lot of hard work to make sure downtown looks great.
Good people.
On the mayor councilor comments, you want to start us off?
Sure. I only have 3 things. So, I could do 8 things, but I'm not going to. I won't be at the special workshop next week. I won't be in town. I'm sorry. I just realized that when you mentioned it a minute ago. I did want to publicly say thank you to the firefighters and thank you to the rest of council for including me in a lot of the things. I did do a community builders meeting. My favorite thing was breaking bread with the firefighters at the dinner. At the time when I think the camp was at its largest, 1,600 people, they told me. And we passed out city stickers, which were just simple stickers of our seal. And they loved it.
Yeah, they loved it.
They sucked them up and they wanted to take them home to their kids and their families.
When they tried to peel them.
Yeah, they don't peel well, so we'll try and do better on that. And it'd be nice to have other stickers too, but that's such a minor thing, you know what I mean? And the last thing is I wanted to talk about the districting measure, Deschutes for All. There was an article in the paper this week by Susan. Thank you, Susan. I am involved in that effort. I think it's a good effort to have regional representation at our county commission level. I think that we do it in all other areas of our politics, state level and federal level. And I think it's a good thing because, in Sisters, we've been really lucky to have Patty Adair there for a number of years, and she was kind of our point person, and it creates a value that you might not get otherwise. So I would like the city council to consider supporting it as a body if there's enough interest in doing that. But I'm not going to push it or anything like that. So, but I will tell you that I am involved with Deschutes for All, and I am the North County /Sisters spokesperson for Deschutes for All, and I will be doing that because I think it's that good of an effort. So you might hear about me in public doing things, or you might see me on TV or whatever, but I just think it's a very nice way to be represented at the county is to have somebody from a regional district. And I think it makes the workload better for the county commissioners because each of them gets to have 1/5 of the county that they can concentrate on and assume that the other 4 will take care of their districts as well. And that way the collaboration can get a little deeper by having somebody from one area that knows the constituents better than 5 people trying to learn all 200,000 people of the county. I think that's one of the advantages of it too, so. But anyway, just wanted to tell you guys that, and thanks for listening.
Okay. Would you like to go next, Sarah? Or?
Sure. I don't really have anything to report on that hasn't been discussed. I appreciate you letting us know, Michael, about your position in this group, you know, and that will be public. It's always nice to know what other counselors are doing.
Yeah.
I would not want to support council backing that, but that's my personal stance. But I appreciate that you are doing that. So, yeah, thank you.
Carrie?
Hometown Hang, that was my, yep. I thought I was going to let you have it if you took it, so. Michael and I did the Hometown Hang. Had a lot of folks come by. They had little punch cards that they handed out, C4C did, and had to go to each of the different nonprofits and ask questions. Not everybody asked questions, but, and get a stamp. And then they had a drawing at the end. I think it was won by like an 8-year-old. Sunday to the Sunday Folk Festival, 2 tickets, but I think it was some little girl that won it. That's what my wife said anyway. I didn't see it. We were still in the booth. But, you know, we had some folks that came by and talked with us about a number of different things. Nothing terribly outstanding. We had a board up there that Eric had put up that people could put some tags on, and Pool got put up there, and I can't think what else got put up.
I think there was 3-hole stickers on that board.
I think the 3-hole stickers. Part of it was that we weren't really pushing it hard. I think that was part of it, and it was also, you know, because a lot of people came by just to get their stamp. Hi, how you doing? Can you stand me? Okay, bye.
And stickers. We gave away a lot of
We
stickers.
gave away a lot of stickers that they can't peel, and they're cursing us there too. So, but it was a good time, and aside from the heat, it was kind of miserable hot in the booth. And the wind, we couldn't have some of our stuff up because the wind kept taking it down. And many thanks to Monica, who gave up her afternoon to come over and set that up, and then her evening to go over and break that down. And it was very much appreciated.
Do you want to talk about the fire tour with Chief Pryor that we did? Or was there anything?
Well, I stood down at the base of the fire tower because I wasn't allowed to climb.
We didn't allow you up.
But it was very eye-opening, and I think that you get a lot of appreciation for what it is folks are doing. And watching that fire from Hinkle Butte, but not up high at Hinkle, and watching how quickly the wind changed and how quickly the movement changed during the hour or so that we were up there was really kind of eye-opening, you know. Because when we first got there, it was pretty clear. You could see most of the way over towards the burn. And by the time we left, the smoke was rolling in, and which meant the fire was rolling in because it was pushing it that way. So we got lucky. I know we said that with a flat fire, but this time we really did get lucky. And, you know, stopping it at Indian Ford Road, essentially, in that area, I think if it had crossed down into Sage Springs and that meadow down in there, we'd be having a different discussion today in a different location. So you can add more when we get to it, but I thought it was very enlightening.
Good. Sure.
So I attended the COIC meeting, just a update on Core 3, which is, you know, our Emergency Operations Center that will be built out towards Redmond there. Groundbreaking is scheduled to begin in mid-September and continue through the spring. Due to funding, Phase 1 has been split into Phase 1A now, and that means that will include the Emergency Vehicle Operator course and skills pad with supporting site infrastructure, including some ODOT work for left-hand turn lane. The hopes are, as more funding comes in, then they can start working on the Emergency Coordination Center and the Fire Training Tower. SEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Committee, met. We had our quarterly meeting, in July, and it was a really interesting topic. We were discussing the brainstorming a bit on the idea of what would an inland port district in Central Oregon be like to help us manage infrastructure and hopefully get more direct access to supply chains and funds for our remote area. If you recall, Laird's parting words were, "The location of Sisters is not competitive for shipping." And, you know, that definitely hit hard for our small town when they left. The state of Washington has both inland and coastal port districts. For example, Walla Walla has a port district, inland port district, for focusing on the winery distributions and so forth. So if Central Oregon was to get an inland port, it would, well, first of all, it's going to require legislation changes, obviously. Senator Broadman had promoted that, but it did not move forward. But we would potentially be the first inland port for Oregon, in Central Oregon. So maybe someday, which would be wonderful. And then I attended the fire department's blessing, if you will, of the new fire engine and ambulance, and it was really, really fun. Their tradition, I call it baptizing, was to spray from a hose of an existing unit onto the two new vehicles, kind of bless them, anoint them, if you will, and then they were pushed in. All the kids joined in as well. They were very excited about that, pushing in these vehicles, brand new vehicles, sparkling new with new car smell, into the firehouse. So it was really fun. And if you didn't catch it, KTVZ did a little story on it. You could probably get it on their website. And then I guess today I just attended the Regional Business Association. Eric Strobel invited us to that, and their focus is ensuring local businesses are heard. They cover Crook, Jefferson, Deschutes counties, and we heard some really interesting stuff. Mayor Litz was there as well. I don't know how much you wanted to share, if you want to do Tammy's comments, which I thought were really interesting.
Yeah, I can talk about them if you want.
And if you followed up on, I saw you pick up your pen real quick on that. Real good to listen to some of the people that were there. We had Explore Sisters there, and Tammy Parker with her insurance, and Christine Funk from Thompson Guitars, and we had representation from the lodge there. So it was a really good roundtable discussion around our local business concerns and updates. That's it for now.
Do you know where the tradition of pushing the new apparatus into the fire station comes from?
I read that back when the horses used to pull the engines
back into
unhitch.
the old horse-drawn. They had people at the horses, and then people would gather around to push these heavily loaded wagons of equipment back into the firehouse.
It was a great tradition to see that. And by the way, the new fire engine, $890,000 was
Yeah,
I think that's
$890,000.
With $1 per pound.
yeah, which is actually cheap. Some running closer to $1 million. Hate to say that, but.
They didn't get the automatic windows. Auto lock, I guess.
Oh, dear.
Put down a few things. We have been gone so long that Quilt Show was after our last meeting. So
Really?
I had to double check my calendar there. That was a fantastic event as well. Before things got spicy here, so beautiful weather, and like a lot of people had a great time. And thanks to the city for all the work helping organize the streets so they were safe for everybody visiting. I think a good time had by all. A little bit, everything's out of order here. Attended a community builders as well, I think, in last month, before everything got spicy. Let's see, we had a fire, and then The fire was so interesting how 2 and 11 months, they were like twin fires almost, and very similar in some respects. This time out of the gate, we had very limited resources versus last time when we were the only fire, the only show. I don't really think it made a huge difference because that fire was very angry and was going to do what it was going to do, whether we had 100 people or 1,000 people. So, but better to have 1,000 and to have the odds in your favor. But eventually, because of even all the fires, we were the largest population center in regards to all the other large fires going on, and that's why we were for the most part, the #1 fire in the nation for better or for worse. Better as we got more resources, worse. I think, in a conversation today, Regional Business Alliance and other conversations we've had, there is that push-pull of the media cycle is so weird anymore. Anything that happens here happens on a weekend, and there's no media.
Yep, no media.
And then they start catching on to the story Monday or Tuesday, then it hits the national media by Wednesday, and by the time you start getting those phone calls from friends far away, like the issue's over. But if you're running a business, tourism economy, things like that, I know a lot of people have had struggled with that. And I know Explore Sisters is taking very seriously the messaging. They don't want to say don't come because they get their funding from hotel receipts, and they're as hurt as anybody else. But everybody kind of leaned into the call to safety, and I think that was the right place to go. It's just kind of a bizarre world to live in when some of this information is just still out there, but not the first time this has happened. Thanks to council for your engagement in the fire and the cooperator meetings and the community meetings, and to staff as well. I think 2 times in a row, this has turned into a really great exercise for the city, a preparedness exercise. Thankfully, it did not come extremely close, just close enough. So the silver lining is every time I think we get better and better prepared. We've built relationships, we've got all the phone numbers on each other's cell phones, and if we have to do this again, relatively in the near future, I have a lot of confidence in our city staff, our sheriff's department. Had conversations, I think some of us did as well, with the sheriff, and that push-pull with the evacuation levels and where to put them. And I would say my one criticism from last year was that I did feel that Sisters, the city itself, should have been in level 1, and we weren't, and they had their reasons for that at the time. Sheriff and I talked about that this year, and during the fire, and we were both on the same page, is that, level 1 is level 1. It just means pay attention, think about it, be prepared, have a plan.
I'm on the south side of the city, and I packed.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I was a lovely exercise for.
Yeah, and that's, and everybody says, in Central Oregon, you just should be in level 1 all summer, so I think that's a good.
Still sitting by the door.
A good reminder. So again, thanks to all the partners, firefighters, law enforcement, locally and from everywhere else. Again, the other weird silver lining is the same state fire marshal team came in to run this fire, so they also had all of our cell phone numbers, and they knew the area very well. They knew the roads, they knew all the partners. So it was, even though they were a little later getting here, they hit the ground running, which was a bizarre effect of having 2 fires back to back. But it was nice to see familiar faces, and then the same stories. Firefighters saying that our community members, our partners, and our friends and our neighbors out to the northeast of us who have done the fire mitigation work around their properties was making a difference, and that helps us. When there's other properties in between a fire and us, and again, I know we're going to work on this issue this year, and I'm excited about that. But we owe that in the greater community as well. Fire can come from any direction, so I want to make sure to be able to return the favor to the people around us who continue to do the work to make the greater Sisters country safer. During that time, the governor visited and did a lunch for a lot of the visiting state officials, fire managers, fire representation, elected officials. Really great roundtable conversation just about challenges, staffing. Federal and state is a really big issue right now for multiple reasons. Money is one of them. Changing demands, and then there's kind of this logjam of getting the middle management. State forester Casey put it very eloquently that it takes the same amount of time to get certified to be a brain surgeon as it does to get a middle management position in a wildfire organization. And it's partially because, especially the state, still a lot of these people are working seasonally. And these are skill sets that you want people to have dialed in because, like a brain surgeon, they are life and death situations. But they're not enough time every season to really get the experience they need. So there's a little bit of a logjam there. Hopefully the governor was hearing these stories from these professionals and will lean in on working on some solutions when we get out of fire season. I think during the fire, state treasurer also visited, Elizabeth Steiner. Yeah. As well. She happened to just be in Central Oregon and was just visiting towns and just wanted to meet some people. And then we had some people from the community from FAN and Kiwanis Food Bank. We wanted to bring in some people that just had different perspectives on economy and what's going on. I mean, the treasurer does so many bizarre things, so many interesting things for our state. But it was really nice to just have a face-to-face with her here and with some staff and community members. There was Maiden Sisters tour.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know, it's been so long. And that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was so fun.
Yeah.
And Eric even offered to get me a golf cart so I could go. I was,
Yeah.
I was one of the tour guides.
Yes. Yeah, one of the tour guides did Sisters Coffee Warehouse and their production facility. Did
Basics and Box Kill.
And Box Kill. And I think people really enjoyed it. And we were walking, it was walking tours, so it was great because we had our groups and the conversations going on. Because there was regional people, right? There was Sisters people. Some really
Bus came up from Kent,
Yeah. So thanks to EDCO for putting that on and Eric Strobel. That was another great event. There's the there's the natural hazards mitigation plan that the city is working on. It's a county plan, but every city has their little part that they had to work on. And I can look at my calendar. There's one more day, kind of an open house. We're having a shared open house at the Bend Central Library.
It's on the 18th or, I think it's on it's on 4 o'clock on the 18th at the new library in Bend.
Okay. Yeah, so that's
Public
something,
input meeting.
public input meeting, anybody can attend that. It's almost finished. I think everybody had kind of fleshed out their needs. No shock that wildfire and winter storm are kind of equal in the math. It is kind of a math matrix that they use for our community. Not a lot different from 5 years ago, because this is an update. But that is open to the public if people want to learn about that process and attend that in Bend at the Central Library.
You mean the dump?
No, it's not. Landfill. We're on the way to the current landfill. I attended the Oregon Mayor's Association meeting. I didn't get to do that last year, so this is my first time. It was in Ashland, so it was really fun to get to go down to Ashland. My family got to go, so they had more fun than I did because I was in the conference most of the time, and it was 103 degrees every day, so what can you do? But because of the fire, I had only a few days to put together the Sisters basket for the auction.
Oh, man.
Thankfully, people stepped up and honestly, I had enough for 2 baskets, and I gave it to the staff to set up, and they squished them together. That was a mistake. But I think we were the second highest bid of all the baskets. And we got almost $600 for the basket.
Nice.
So thanks to all the community members that donated things. I sent out a thank you email today to everybody, but also just really proud to have, it's just fun that, everybody's milling around. It's a silent auction, right? So you're kind of filling your names in, and I'd walk over to the basket sometimes and I was like, oh, did you notice our sister's coffee there? And did you notice, oh, here's something for the quilt show, and oh, and a night at Five Pines. Did you know Five Pines is the #1 hotel in the United States? And so it was, it's fun to brag about our town. That's what we love to do so much. So that was a great event, just great to get together with people who do this. I was going to say for a living, none of us are paid, but, and just swap the stories, and it's just so interesting to hear what other communities are doing, their challenges and their solutions, and got to share some of ours as well, so appreciated being able to go to that. And, Cheryl and I got to speak with staff with Veridian, which is a company trying to work with the city of Ashland on a potential funding mechanism for wildfire mitigation costs. So that was just an interesting conversation. Just, very high level about what they're thinking, kind of more of a municipal bond situation to fund things. So we know that we're having this conversation coming up, and we know that there's dollar signs and money will be a challenge, so just trying to get ahead of that and do some research. So thanks for sitting in on that. And then I was invited by Senator Wyden's local field rep. He had to attend a press conference he did based on just talking about the wildfires all across the state. This was a couple of days ago.
So you're standing in the background.
Yep. And so, I got to say a few words, just, thanks to our firefighters again, and all of our first responders and our law enforcement and everybody on the ground and in the offices and flying around in circles in the sky. It just, reflected a little bit on our two experiences over the last 11 months. And glad he was here, and he had toured the Real Creek Complex ICP that morning. He'd been out to Warm Springs to talk to them about their fire, so really trying to stay abreast of that, which is great. And then I also acknowledged that, unfortunately, I said it was on Monday it was 7, and today it's 8 firefighters who've lost their lives this season across the country, and also one in Oregon as well. So again, that's 8 too many. That we, firefighters and law enforcement and our personnel are not expendable. This shouldn't be happening, and this is also compounded on a line of work that is also heavily impacted by suicides as well. So just want to throw that out there, for the families of those firefighters who were supposed to come home. And also just when you see our firefighters, and especially our wildland firefighters, because they're out in the wildlands. We don't see them as much as our structural crews. Thank the structural crews. Wave at the crew buggies and the ones that kind of, I think we all can recognize them now of the little fire engines, the Type 6s we call them, and everything. They travel through here so much anymore around our state. Just let them know that they're appreciated, because they don't get as much face time as the structural crews do. So, it was so, thank you for you guys for coming out to the fire camp, and that was really fun. And I know you got to go on the tour with the PIO, that day. I think I was getting the sense from the team and the PIOs that they were really impressed with our city and our council, and really appreciated the attention that we were giving. And we weren't getting in the way or anything, but we were just there to say, hey, we're here to be partners. And I think that was really appreciated. So I really thank everybody, because it's our time, and but it's our community. And
I learned something really important, that a lot of those guys, they're seasonal, but they do it the whole season. They don't go home until all the fires are out. Yep.
Usually
They go from, a lot of them go fire to fire to fire and don't see their families for weeks and months.
it's technically, it should be 14-day rolls with 2 days off, but that doesn't mean you get to go home for those 2 days off.
Some of them live very far away.
Yeah, it just might be you're in a hotel for 2 days and then you're reassigned to something else, so. Yeah, it can be very stressful and the years are getting worse and worse and worse. When I started 30 years ago, it's insane how much it's changed.
2 million acres this year, right, in Oregon.
So far, I think, yeah. Pretty crazy.
Not good.
So I think that is all I had. Anybody have any go-backs, anything that they wanted to share? Or?
Well, I just wanted to add that comment we heard in RBA from Tammy. Which
Oh, yeah.
was interesting.
Yeah, just speaking to the fascinating impacts of these natural disasters, even though this one was, I mean, there were 2 homes that were lost, which is a huge loss, for those people. I don't want to skim over that, and people just have property damage outside the city, so I don't want to forget that either. And then being pulled out of your house for a week or 2, if you're especially in level 3, is a lot and very traumatizing, so I don't want to glaze over that. A lot of, in the world of natural disasters, in the insurance world, insurance has been one of our struggling points in the city and especially outside the city. And a lot of agencies have a policy now that they will not write new policies or policy changes while there is a incident going on.
Active wildfire.
Yeah, and in our case, active wildfire. So, I mean, that was even if somebody wanted a new car policy or, the basic day-to-day stuff that needs to keep going. And I'm going to try to follow up on this. I think I have some connections, but Tammy, who's an insurance agent, was saying that one of the challenges is that in the fire world, you have a fire and then you're doing containment, and there's always that percentage, 50% contained, and it's 80% contained, and then it's 99% contained, and then sometimes that 99% containment seems to just hang on and hang on. And there's a few reasons why that goes on. It's kind of like making sure everything's really buttoned up. You don't want to say it's 100%, and then the next day something flares up, and so that's one of the reasons. There's other reasons as well, but the insurance industry looks at that and says, nope, there's still a fire, so we're not writing, you can't write policies. She was saying, it's people are trying to sell houses, and those are in an escrow, and that's getting totally derailed because it's like, even though from all intents and purposes the fire's out, so an unintended consequence, right? Dominoes falling as they may. So I was really thankful she brought that up. Obviously, a lot of community members had different feelings about whether they should close or stay open or advertise come here or don't come here. It's not an easy situation. So but she brought that up, and I'll try to follow up on that, or if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking maybe there's a reason from the fire agency side why it's kept at 99%.
Yeah.
Funding, who knows what it is. So you've got 2 things kind of working against each other there.
Yeah.
If you can get to 100%, that would be really helpful for the insurance policies.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, with that, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you for attending.
Didn't drink it all.